Welcome to the first episode of the Machines of Hate podcast. This is the first ever dedicated Fear Factory podcast, and episode 1 today I'm going to be talking with Dan here about Soul of a New Machine. We're going to run through all the albums, 1 through 10, hopefully 11 soon. I think by the time we get to 10, 11 will be ready to go as well, so that'll be good. But yeah, we just thought it'd be interesting to sort of just do a deep dive on each album, and rather than like a full-on review, we're just going to share like our opinions on it. And yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting just to like see where we agree on and where we don't and stuff. But yeah, just like really looking forward to getting into it. So yeah, Dan, I'll let you introduce yourself to everyone.
Oh, put me on the spot, why don't you? Hi, guys, gentlemen, ladies, whoever's watching, thank you very much for watching. So my name's Daniel, whichever you prefer. I go by Dan mostly. I'm from the north-west of England. Henry's from, would you describe it, southern coast maybe, something like that?
Southwest, yeah.
Yeah, so literally like two different sides. I'm up here, he's down here. So we're doing this not in person, but over the Discord service. I discovered Fear Factory through the Mortal Kombat movie. That's where I sort of fell in love with the band. When I was a kid, I was really, really big on my PlayStation, and I had a game called Mortal Kombat 3. My dad kind of took note of that and thought, oh, you know, he really likes this game, and he knew of the movie. So we had a local shop that they weren't like a Blockbusters, but they did a similar sort of thing. You know, you could kind of go and get some sweets and some pops, some cigarettes, and rent a video. Like the back wall was sort of like full of VHS tapes. And this one particular birthday, he'd just come back with this video, Mortal Kombat, and I thought, oh great, let's watch this. And my favourite character in the film and the games was Johnny Cage, and when it got to that fight scene between him and Scorpion, I was like, what is this song? And I had to have it. I remember there was in the town centre where I lived, there was like an independent music shop, and they had like sort of just a basket of loose CDs at the front. I say loose, they were in cases, but they weren't on a shelf or in any sort of order. Yeah. And they had the Mortal Kombat soundtrack, and literally I bought it with my Christmas money, took it home, played the hell out of it in my PlayStation because I didn't have a CD player. I had to play it in my PlayStation with a really crappy visualization from Demo 1. But that was like my first exposure to Fear Factory, and then sort of some of the other games I played, Carmageddon and things like that, Demolition Racer also had Fear Factory songs in. I think maybe there were a couple more in films, but I can't be too sure on that. I know Burton, for example, was in multiple songs on the Mortal Kombat soundtrack because he kind of diversified a few bits with a few different bands and stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much where it started. We got a nice little music shop years later that didn't stick around very long with Music Zone, and I managed to get quite a few of the Fear Factory albums. By that point, we just about got up to Transgression, controversial for some. But yeah, I love all Fear Factory albums. I think they're a great band. It's been brilliant seeing them live these past few years. As a guitarist, Dino is a big inspiration. I like to play somewhere sort of between Fear Factory and Megadeth. I know Dino had a really cool story about how he met Dave Mustaine, so it kind of feels like two influences kind of come together. And you know, I think it's a huge compliment if ever you can sort of say you've blended the two together and put your own sound to it, you know, your own identity. So yeah, been following the band now for about 30 years, lots of highs, lots of lows, people come in, people go in, but they're as good as ever, you know, really supportive of how the band are at the minute. It's been great seeing him, and you know, can't wait to see him again. Can't wait to see what they're working on.
Always looking forward to the next show, right? Yeah, what was the first album you got then? Because if you started with the soundtrack, then did you get Demanufacture or?
No, the first album I got was Digimortal. Strangely enough, it just and the only reason I remember that is because there was like a 4 for £20 deal on, and they only had one Fear Factory album in at the time, and I got Digimortal, Rust in Peace, Euthanasia, and Risk. Because I got like 3 Megadeth albums and like the one Fear Factory album, and I love Megadeth, but that Fear Factory one got played to death.
Yeah, I bet. It's actually like, especially at the time, it's quite like a high-tech sounding album, which is obviously what they were going for. But like all those like electronic things that like Reese was doing, like it sounds insane. Like some of them today, I still think it sounds like so futuristic. Like some of the vocal effects and stuff as well is amazing.
Oh, especially with that Damage format.
Like that is such a good way to start an album, and it's like it'd be nice to hear, maybe not Fear Factory, but anyone just like try and do more of that sort of like digitalization kind of thing. Like I always found it really cool, and that's what makes that album stick out to me, is all those like little intricate electronic bits in there.
I mean, it's interesting because I know the focus of this particular video is sort of a new machine, but to quickly sort of sidetrack a second, I mean, I know that it was said by Burton not too long back, sort of split Fear Factory, in sort of like the days when he were like, I'm leaving, Monolith can come out, which ended up being Aggression Continuum and such. He gave a lot of interviews, and I remember someone speaking to him about the Digimortal album, and he said himself that he thought the original version as they did it was more like sort of obsolete, more like demanufacture, less of the digital, if you will, and that the studio sort of overproduced it with that like to try and fit them in the new metal genre, to get them in with like Korn and Slipknot and Linkin Park, you name it, all those sort of like metal wave bands that came through. So I think it's really interesting because I still think it's a great album. I couldn't have imagined it being anything other than what it is, but it does kind of make you wonder what it would have sounded like if it was the vision that they originally had.
I really hope they'll drop the demos, because I'm pretty much convinced that Dino must have them still. I mean, I don't know 100%, but they released like the Dark Bodies demo. You can hear that one already. It's really like quite different. Like just even the way the vocal melodies come out is like kind of different and stuff. But I like both versions. But it would be interesting what it sounded like if it was like the demo versions, but like a bit more polished. That would be interesting.
And I think that demo had a much darker tone as well. So I think that kind of maybe gives you a bit of insight into more what they were thinking, maybe less of the higher digital.
Yeah.
They probably wanted more darker demanufacture, but who knows, right? Who knows?
Yeah. Well, we'll have to save the rest of that for the 4th episode.
For a later episode, tune in next.
But no, I think that's a good entry point into the band, that album, because it's got the heavy bits, but it's got some like more accessibility in a way. So like, it's quite a good one to get into. You've got Lynchpin on there and stuff, so it's a good one to get into the band in a way. Especially if you already like some new metal bands to begin with, I think that's quite a good like entry point in a way.
Something like Demanufacture probably would have taken more of a acclimatization. I don't think pop is the right word, but I think even if you're not a big metal fan, you can quite easily vibe with Digimortal. Whereas, if you were listening to something like, I don't know, Hunter Killer or New Breed, you might need to have a bit more of that taste.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And what about you? What was your sort of jumping off point into Fear Factory?
I'm a latecomer to the band, really, because I only got into metal like in around 2015, 2016. I dabbled a little bit before. I liked some like Linkin Park and stuff. I used to be really into like Bring Me the Horizon. Still think they've got some good songs actually, but like Sempiternal was the album that like really got me on that heavier music track. I mean, like listening now, I'm like, okay, it's not like extremely heavy like compared to some stuff, but I've seen them live a couple of times, and like you can't tell me like those Shadow Moses riffs don't go hard. Still heavy riffs. So like that was them, and Nirvana were like really put me on that journey. And then my friend like came over, and one day he was like well into metal, and he was like putting on Metallica and like Iron Maiden and stuff. And like when he was playing it, I was like, oh, this is stupid music. I was like, this is ridiculous. This is like, it's silly. And then like when he left, I was like, I remember like Googling like, oh, what was that? Was that Master of Puppets? What was that song? And it was actually like, the more I listened to it, it's like Infectious, and I was like, got well into it all. And then I was just like looking at loads of different bands. I did come across Fear Factory it probably was like 2016, but I think at the time there was just like so many. I was like finding so many bands that it was like overwhelming. But I remember getting into bands like Children of Bodom, Pantera, and that sort of thing. So I think I just wasn't quite ready for like Fear Factory, because it was just like, you know, when you get into a new genre, there's just like a mountain of music to check out. So, but my faint memory of that original listen was that it was like awesome. I'm sure I checked out at least something from Demanufacture and something from Obsolete as well. It's like you can't really forget like the artwork of those albums, so it's kind of like when I got really into them, I remember that I was like, oh yeah, I did check them out like back then, but it was only like 2 songs maybe I listened to. Yeah, but then when I really got into them, it's a weird story actually. It was like I came across this YouTube video and he was talking about I think he was talking about different soundtracks and albums and stuff, but I can't remember specifically what the video was about, but he went on about you know, the Doom 2016 soundtrack.
Oh, Mick Gordon, brilliant.
Yeah. So I was like, I really liked that soundtrack, and this guy was like, right, if you like that music, you need to check out Fear Factory. Like, this band has pretty much been doing something like that, you know, since like the 90s. And I was like, what? This is really interesting. There's a band that was doing something similar before. So I had to go and check them out. But he specifically put in some clips in the video from Genexus, because obviously that album is probably the closest to Doom. And I was like, he's like, this came out 1 year before. And I was like, what? Because you listen to the start of like Dielectric, and I'm like, this is like, it's like Doom 2016. Yeah.
And funny, it's funny you say that. I remember some dick uploaded. There were a couple of tracks that sort of, I won't say got leaked, but maybe there were snippets of tracks out from the Doom soundtrack before it came out, and some dick uploaded a bit of what is it, BFG Division.
All right.
And put like a fake Fear Factory logo on, and they were like, this, yeah. Oh, it weren't up for very long, because I just remember going like, wow, this sounds really, really good. It's different but great. And then it got took down, and I thought, you know, obviously, if it's getting taken down. And then I found out it's because it was Doom. It wasn't Fear Factory at all. It was Doom.
Yeah, I don't know if like Mick Gordon has said, but like clearly there was an influence there, especially from Genexus.
Oh yeah.
Because like anyone can go and listen to the start of Dielectric and you'll hear exactly what I mean. Like those electronic elements like blending with that, you know, the drop tune guitars, like low tuning guitars and stuff, and I'm like, it's got all the elements. But yeah, I was just fascinated because I was like, I already loved that Doom 2016 soundtrack, and this guy is like, there's a real band that literally made music that's like this. They've been going around for ages, and I was like, oh yeah, I've heard of Fear Factory before, but I'd never checked out any of the new stuff. I knew that for a fact. I'd only checked out something from Demanufacture and Obsolete. So I just put like Genexus on, and I was like, that's it. Like I'm in love with this band. Like that album just sounds so modern in a good way, like really clear production, amazing riffs, but like I think it was the vocals especially, and the electronic elements, like all of that mixed together with that kind of like mechanical feel. But yeah, the melodies, like vocal melodies on that album are just so catchy, aren't they? Like I want to sing along to like every one of them. So I was just like completely taken with that album, to the point of like I wasn't ready to listen to the other stuff for a while. I remember just listening to Genexus over and over and over and over, and then eventually I was like, right, this is a huge catalogue of music. It's time to go back and check out some of the rest of it. And I think I went back to
Back to the Future.
Yeah, I think I went back to like Demanufacture, and I like got well into that. Songs like even just like Replica, and I was like, oh, this is like really interesting, because he was doing the harsh and clean vocal thing back then, a bit different, but you can still hear the same formula in that music like 20 years before. And I was like, that's crazy. Like this sounds so modern for like something that came out 20 years ago. It sounds modern and futuristic and 90s at the same time. Like Demanufacture is weird. It's like it's got everything.
it ticks so many boxes, and I think you make a great point as well. I think Genexus is a fantastic sort of jumping off point for anyone who doesn't know the band. I mean, I always thought of the first time I listened through Genexus, to me it was kind of like an amalgamation of everything that Fear Factory was up till that point, minus the albums without Dino. But it genuinely sounded so much like you could hear a little bit of the previous albums in every song. You could sort of relate back to it. So it was a fantastic one, and it were about that time actually. I remember I was listening to Regenerate in the car, and it's such a great song. My fiance never liked Fear Factory when I played it, but I could sort of see the head bouncing a bit. I'm like, you're getting it now, you're getting it. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, we were going out somewhere for the day. I can't remember where. And before we even got down the road, it's going, shut up, and I'm like, I knew you'd catch the bug.
Amazing. Yeah, Regenerate is that's a really good song to show someone who's not maybe into super heavy stuff. It is still actually a heavy song, but those clean vocal parts are just so catchy, so uplifting actually is one word I'd use. Yeah, my wife likes, oh my God, what's the last song? Expiration Date. I got her into that one. That's just a banger. I feel like that song is just across genres, isn't it? In a way, you can't really pinpoint it, which is what I love about it. And I feel like people from all kinds of different genres that they like, you could probably find something in that song you could enjoy. It's just amazing. It's weird. It's like kind of sad and uplifting at the same time. That's
yeah. They do it quite a bit in the more recent albums. I think maybe it's something that picked up with Demanufacture, where each album felt more like a story as you were going along. Each album I envision in my head as I'm listening to what the story looks like. It's like when you read a book and watch a film. You might watch the film and be like, I'm not sure that's the best actor or something like that, but it's only because you read the book and you had that picture in your head of sort of what that person looked like, what they sounded like, and what the different sets and things look like, the locations and stuff. And it was very much like that for me, and I think it sort of gives this great jumping off point, which maybe bringing us sort of full circle, takes you back to Soul of a New Machine, which is just much more of a raw, album. And I think maybe that's where we can nicely tie everything in together, because we'd said ourselves for some time that we enjoyed Fear Factory for maybe 2 different generations, myself a bit longer, yourself a bit newer, but we found that we had so much in common. Was it Bristol we first met?
Yeah, I was going to get into that. It was London originally, but we didn't, as far as I remember, we didn't even talk to each other, maybe. I know we were having a blast.
No.
We were on the barrier next to each other. What year was it then? Was it 2023? I think it was.
Yeah, I think it's when they could just about start touring as well, because
I think it was October or November, maybe, 2023 in London, the Electric Ballroom, right?
Yeah, me and my friend John had tickets. We went to go and see him in multiple places. So we saw him in Manchester, because it's about 30 miles away, but it's the biggest, nearest city for us that does things like that. Yeah. I mean, there's Preston and maybe Lancaster, but bands never really go there. Manchester's the place to be. We could have travelled a bit further wider and gone to Leeds or something like that, but Leeds and Liverpool is more of a trek. Then we went down to London and went to Bristol a few days after, and it was just as we were at Bristol, it was sort of like, you sort of think, I recognise this guy, I don't know where I've seen him, and you just jump in like, hey buddy, how are you?
Yeah, it was funny because I swear we were pretty much on the same spot at the barrier on the Bristol show, and I was almost like, I was next to you yesterday, so we couldn't just not talk then. That would be too weird. We were like, no, this is that's really cool. We're obviously both quite big fans. We're seeing them more than once and stuff. So.
And I think we both went by public transport. Did you go by train or by coach or something?
I took a coach. Actually, I'm just going to backtrack a minute to the London show. That was the first time I ever saw Fear Factory. So it was just incredible. Because I'd been listening at that point quite a few years, so it was just amazing to see him live for the first time. And the set list was absolutely solid that tour. I actually Dino handed me one at the end of the show, so I've got it. And after the show ended, I went round the back to see if I could meet any of them, and I actually bumped into like the whole band. So it was an amazing first experience. Like, saw them for the first time, amazing set list. Dino handed me the set list, got round to the back of the venue, met all the bands like Milo, Pete, and yeah, Dino was there, of course, and he signed it for me as well. So it was quite late at night, so we didn't have like a long time to chat, but just sort of, just exchanged a few words, and it was like really, really awesome to meet them all. They're all like awesome guys. So, and that was an amazing experience. And then I went to a hotel and then got on a coach the next day. It'd be funny if we were on the same coach. I don't think we were. Like I went quite.
No.
Yeah.
And that's part of what worried me, because I thought all that time, I was like, if we literally gone on the same coaches, we got a coach as well, which were one of the, I can't remember whether it was Stagecoach or National Express, it was one of the two.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking after the show, we're like, if he was in London as well, were we even on the same? Maybe I put it down to if you got the train or something. I don't remember asking you at the time.
Yeah.
But it and I think you find a lot of people go to as many gigs as they can when they come. We always see familiar faces. There's people you can catch up with, usual suspects, if you will. And it's great in a way, because that's the one thing I do like about Fear Factory as sort of an audience, is you almost feel like you're part of a family, if you will, and you get to know people, and you quite often see same people at different venues and stuff like that. I mean, the London and Bristol one, when I saw in Manchester as well, that was a Disrupt tour, if I remember correctly. So it was Ghost of Atlantis, Ignia, Butcher Babies, and then Fear Factory, which was interesting because I'd never heard of Ghost of Atlantis before, and I thought they were really, really good. Ignia, probably something quite a bit different from everything else, I thought, but still, again, really, really good. Butcher Babies had like a reputation and stuff, didn't they? And just that they were sort of an established band, but it was one I hadn't really listened to before. So for me, it was something a bit different. Not entirely my sort of thing, but I thought they were great live.
Yeah, I mean,
and then it was
the energy from them was awesome. It's not really my kind of thing either, but like no one can deny they were giving it their all out on the stage, like, which is like what you want live, isn't it? Is like people going crazy like that up there. So
well, that was it. And then it were Fear Factory. I'm trying to think of the name of the bassist they were touring with, because I'm quite a big Static X fan as well. Like they're another band that I really like, and obviously Tony Campos, as much as he is Fear Factory these days, he's Static X was his thing, founding member, and he were there for many, many years.
It was
I think
Dino's,
at the time,
Dino's guitar tech was filling in, if I remember right.
I just wish I could remember his name. It wasn't. I don't think it was Hector or something like that. But we saw him after one or two of the gigs, and he seemed like a really cool guy. I don't know if you remember, but when Butcher Babies were playing in Bristol, they blew the PA twice.
Yeah, I remember.
And he literally had to he had to come out and fix it.
Yeah. He gone back up and running though, which is good. So
he was a cool guy. I thought he played really well. He did good. You know.
But I have to say, like, that Bristol show, I thought, like, London and Bristol, I mean, it was equally as amazing. But that Bristol venue, I think, has got really good sound generally. So I think the sound is just a bit better in there than the Electric Ballroom. And I just felt like the energy was, like, insane at the Bristol one. Like, am I remembering it correctly? Like, it was just, like, even more so than London.
It were confusing for me, because I had been to Bristol before, but I'd been to a different venue to see a different band, and it was literally just as I got to the front of the building and I was looking up. I think it changed its name in between from like SWX to Chalk or something like that. I can't quite remember. But I was looking around and I'm like,
at the time it was SWX when Fear Factory.
That's the one.
But when we saw them again this year, they've changed it this year to like Electric Bristol or Bristol Electric, something like that. Yeah.
But there wasn't even like a poster out front, so I was like, is this it? It just looked like a closed theatre, you know, black doors and no queue, no nothing. So I was like, I don't know if I'm in the right place. Google tells me I am. I don't know this city. So we walked round the corner and to the left, and there was a sign that said Fear Factory with an arrow pointing in. So I was like, well, maybe you go this way and queue up. The security's like, what are you doing? So I'm going to queue for Fear Factory, and they're like, yeah, it's round the front. I'm like, there's not even a poster. What are you for real? I have no idea what I'm. So as we're walking away, the whole band walks past us, and I'm like, I'm really confused now because they've just gone down there, and you're telling us to go out front.
Yeah.
Oh God, we ended up queuing for something like 3 hours or something, and that's when we bumped into you again. And the second them doors opened and there were that big screen that with the Disruptor logo and everything, that was just hardcore. And I just remember running up those stairs as fast as I can to get into the venue.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like you say,
then you can just kind of like leg it to the front. So, but we had like best spot, didn't we? We were like just like off to the right side.
Oh yeah,
the front. But I think because the London date was the first time I saw him, it was almost like, you know, you're overwhelmed almost with how amazing it is. But when I saw him that second time, I was like, I had enough time to process it a bit better in a way. But yeah, Milo did a great job. Like with the mic, he was like coming right at us, wasn't he? Like pointing the mic at us and stuff, which is like, I love that interaction. And that's kind of like why I love going up to the front and stuff like that. You just feel like connected with the band and stuff. But I remember on the song Demanufacture, he came right down, didn't he? Like onto the you know, where you can step on the barrier and stuff, and he was right in there at the end of the Demanufacture, and I was like, everyone was just like, it was just like insane. Never forget that.
Like the energy is just great. I remember the year after we saw him in Brighton, didn't we? We travelled down, and it was kind of like an impromptu gig. And again, Ghosts of Atlantis were there, really great opening act, and we met a sort of, I don't think elderly is the word, but a bit of an older gent. And same again, Milo had stood on the barrier and stood on his shoulder, and he was like, "Oh, I'm so happy." And I'm, you know, another great gig, the energy and stuff like that. Obviously, we saw him again this year in Bristol together. We'd seen him in Manchester previously the night before, and supporting Kerry King, which was absolutely mental because it didn't feel like anyone was really going for Kerry King. You kind of saw the odd Slayer shirt at both gigs, and you know they played in a lot of different venues, so saying this off 2 gigs might be a bit, you know, you're not really representing the whole crowd. But
yeah,
I mean, I certainly thought that, like, Linchpin at the end of the set, the whole floor was rocking, and I just didn't see that same energy for Slayer.
It's
you know, you can't
type of music like Linchpin is like, it just gets everyone going. Like it's just such a huge like bouncy riff, isn't it? That like you just can't help like getting involved in that, because like you watch the videos, even people at the back are just like, what?
Oh, mate, the energy was incredible, and like all the crowd surfers started sort of like midway through, and it was crazy to think that, you know, an industry titan like Kerry King, who was there with Slayer, one of the big 4, and so on and so forth, that more people had come to see Fear Factory than him. And I say that speculatively. I'm not saying that for a fact. That was just my experience on both nights. But it were almost like, afterwards when he came out, it were like, all right, maybe we can't beat that atmosphere, but I tell you what we'll do, we'll be louder. And then in Manchester, the sound quality was awful. The guitars were peaking, the bass were peaking. You could feel the bass drum in your chest. Yeah. And it's like you're struggling to listen, and I'm like, all I can hear now is a cacophony of instruments. I'm not hearing the song. And then when we saw him in Bristol together the day after, like, it was a lot clearer and a lot better, but it lacked that energy that Fear Factory had. I mean, the sort of, if you were to split the crowd from back to front into thirds, sort of the furthest away, call it the middle and maybe the pit, and then the front, for Kerry King, the front was going wild, but everyone else were just kind of like, you know, I'll nod my head a bit to the music, but Fear Factory, all from the back to the front, you could just feel it.
Yeah, 100%. And like they were doing Demanufacture in full, so it's like quite a special occasion in a way. Because a lot of people know that, you know, even if they're like more there for Kerry and they're a casual fan of Fear Factory, most people know Demanufacture at this point. You know, it's like 30-year anniversary, so maybe that had something to do with it as well. There's a lot of those hit songs that people know, so it could be to do with that. But yeah, no, it was an awesome. I mean, every time I've seen Fear Factory, the sound has been really good. It doesn't even matter the venue. Like, it's always seems to be solid. But I know they do like quite extensive sound checking and stuff to to get it right. And Dino's got his Kemper setup thing, hasn't he? Which so it's like pretty much going to be on point every time, I reckon.
Yeah, it's interesting. He went for a more digital sound, didn't he? And I think the big thing the first time I saw him in 2023 was like it was I think it maybe not the very first, but some of the first international shows with Milo as the singer, and I think there was still a lot of that criticism, and you saw those just ridiculous comments online of, you know, there's no Fear Factory without Burton, it'll never be the same. And like if you'd have been to any of those gigs and you'd said those things, I think you'd be eating a bit of humble pie. You know, Milo was absolutely fantastic and his energy is great.
Yeah. I mean, like the videos on YouTube like are really good, but you got to be there to like, you know, to form a full opinion. Like you just got to be there, I think. Yeah, and it's like it's just everything's just like extremely tight, like vocals, drums, guitar, everything's like properly locked in. So yeah, no, it's been amazing. Yeah, getting on to better go back, rewind 30 years.
Well, I was literally just about to say it's going to be a shame, really, because we're not going to talk about Milo for quite some time.
Rewind back to the beginning, 33 years. Well, yeah, about 33 years ago, wasn't it? 19. Yeah,
we've got to give him that shout out, haven't we? You can't start without saying, you know, as much as we love the past, the future is still just as good. You know.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, like just starting off on the Soul of a New Machine discussion is like awesome. They're still playing, you know, a fair chunk of those songs. Like in the last few years, we've had Scapegoats been in there a lot. Martyr, of course.
Yeah, Martyr. Yeah.
They've done Big God. Like they were playing that this year.
I wanted to see him play that. I don't think they played it when we watched him, but it download that they actually played it at a festival of some sort.
Yeah, there was a couple of festivals they were doing it like right towards the end, I think. I mean, it's only like a couple minutes, that song, so quite easy to.
It's my favourite one on the album.
Yeah.
You know, when we get to talking about it, it is my favourite one on the album, but they always stay relevant, and I'm sure one of the more recent albums has got a re-recorded version of Martyr, probably.
Oh, it's a bonus track for Mechanize, yeah.
Mechanize,
and they also Crash Test as well, I think. Yeah. No, it's interesting to hear those songs, because like it makes them sound like super modern with that production. It's like, well, like the notes and vocals, like nothing's really changed. It's just you change the production and the tones and everything. And it's like, no, this band was like doing this like way back in the day. You just put it in a new shiny wrapper, and it's like it's really interesting.
Mate, it's crazy to think that they were just starting that journey before I was born. Like I know from what you read online, and you can't trust everything you read online, but you know they were sort of coming to it in the late 80s, you know, maybe 89 or something like that. 90 rolls around, they have the Concrete recording in, I think, 1991.
They were ulcerated, weren't they, in 1989, just for a really small period. Then they changed to Fear Factory in 1990, I think, if I remember right.
Yeah, I'm sure someone posted a video on YouTube in like quite low VHS quality, but it was like the first gig under the name Fear Factory or something like that. It kind of feels like they're in a corner of a room.
There's some really cool videos like from the first few shows. Like they were doing those like street shows in LA, just like, literally in people's like back gardens and stuff. And I'm like, that looks just like insane to me. Like, can you imagine being there? They had like a really like good amount of people there and stuff. And I'm like, it's amazing you like get away with that now. And I'm like, that's just something that like we're sadly probably not going to experience anything like that. So it was just like you had to be right place, right time, didn't you, to experience like a show like that.
Well, that's it. I never realised until years later, because obviously I mean I were only born in 90, but like when I got the internet properly and stuff, and we had access to things like LimeWire and, you know, all the sort of early streaming services like Napster and things like that. You know, you got to listen to some of the bands that influenced them. You could see like the Godflesh 150%. You could feel it, like Ministry and things like that. So you could sort of see the influences. But if you were to go back and listen to Soul of a New Machine today, in its original recording, in its original form, after the sort of legal fallout, because I don't remember the full story, but I just remember that Concrete was the initial. Yeah. Recording, initial release, they kind of looked at the contract and went, whoa, what the fuck is this? We don't really agree to this.
Yeah.
And I think it was something to the effect of Roadrunner paid for something somewhere, and certain rights stayed with the guy who originally tried to get a deal with the guys.
Yeah,
and
there was some sort of like falling out with the producer, something legal, which I'm not quite sure what happened. But,
and then
yeah.
Colin Richardson came into it, I think, at that point, because he did a lot of demanufacture as well. If I remember, he did like there's literally the Zero Signal, Colin Richardson remix and stuff, and
the guy who produced Concrete, like, so the original version, like, didn't he go off to do like all those nu metal bands like Korn and maybe Slipknot, or I can't remember which bands, but a lot of famous like nu metal bands.
I mean, he clearly had an eye for a band, but from the sound of it, from a business point of view, he was a shady guy, really shady guy. And I think, and this is a sad thing as well, as we'll probably discuss in many of these podcasts, is, from day one, legal issues and legal problems were a big thing that caused a lot of internal turmoil within the band. A lot of like, I'm sick of this. Do we have to go through this again? Why are we being bogged down by bureaucracy and red tape and stuff like that? So it's frustrating, but I suppose I know that some of the work they did on Concrete did end up in Soul of a New Machine.
And actually,
I know that at the time,
production-wise, I think it is actually really cool to hear the original mix as well, like the Concrete style ones. Like, I do think it sounds like it's even more raw than Soul of a New Machine, isn't it?
Than what we got.
It's more, it's more industrial in a way, like, I think, in a sense. So I know some people that actually like prefer some of the mixing on that, but for me, I do prefer. I mean, maybe it's just because of what I'm used to, but I like the Soul of a New Machine mix, to be honest.
And that's what they said at the time, weren't it? That they had this original album that maybe didn't pan out the way they wanted them to, and because of costs and things like that, a lot of Soul of a New Machine was like quick sessions in recording studios and stuff to keep costs down, which I understand. And I think I don't want to say the album sounds unfinished, because I don't think that's the word, but as you say, it's very raw, it's very brutal. It's like having the raw ingredients for a meal and just eating the ingredients, then putting them together and baking the whole thing, if that makes sense. Like, there's an end product there, sure, but it is raw. Burton's vocals, the drumming, no electric drums or anything like that. It's all done on the day sort of thing, isn't it? And if you listen to the way Raymond plays,
if you're into your like super old school industrial kind of stuff, like, it's well worth listening, isn't it? Concrete, I think. I didn't like quite get it at first, but the more I listened to it, I was like, oh, it's got quite a cool like edge to it in a way. But yeah, no, if I'm gonna listen to those songs, I generally just put on Soul of a New Machine. But this is what I like when bands release stuff like that. Like, they didn't have to do that, but actually it's really interesting to just go and hear the origins of everything. And there's even some demos from like before Concrete, which I've checked out, but they're like super lo-fi.
There's I'm sure there's a channel on YouTube. I'm not sure who runs it. There were a rumor for a while that it were Burton, but I don't know whether it's true. And it's called Rare Factory. And there's some really good stuff on there. Like, there's pretty much a whole remix album of Archetype, and to the best of my knowledge,
it's in the Discord server. I think I can't remember his name right now, but I'm sure at least he has access.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
But no, he's found some really like rare stuff, and I think it's Rare Factory, right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. And you listen to some of the stuff on there, and it kind of gives you a look into the future. Like, I think there were a lot of Digimortal, for example. But that's kind of the beauty of Concrete and Soul of a New Machine, isn't it? Even though Concrete was the initial vision released something like 10, 12 years later, something like that. So we had Soul of a New Machine in that time.
Yeah.
You can kind of listen to that and go, ooh, interesting. So that was sort of your first take on some of these stuff. You refined it and released it with Soul of a New Machine. But then when you listen to it years later, it kind of gives you that insight as to where we were going with the band and how it evolved. Like you say, it kicks off straight away with Martyr, doesn't it? And there's no fucking around. We're just straight into it now. There's no quiet title track. There's no build up like the Terminator 2. It's just straight in there.
Yeah, it's a very original album. Although you could argue, Fear Factory hasn't fully found their sound. Even then, on this first album, like, you can't find anything that sounds
Mm.
like those songs, especially the songs that have the proper mix of like clean and harsh vocals. Like, just wasn't a thing. Like, you can find a few bands. I've tried looking to see if I could find anything, and you can find bands that do like clean first, then harsh. But there's you can't find bands that
Mm.
are doing this back and forth thing. That just seemed to be like Fear Factory's thing that no one was doing before. Um,
And
and also
I
like
think that's one of the things
yeah,
that drew me to uh, Big God, because like you say, it's a perfect mix of the two.
yeah, and that's the song that started it all, right? Because as far as I know, the story
Mm.
went they were just rehearsing like Big God in like an earlier form, and then like Byrne just starts like singing over a bit because he felt like that's what would fit, and like
Mm.
Dino's freaking out, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you singing like that?
Stop it!
And then he's like, yeah, don't stop, keep doing that, keep doing that. So I'm like, that's when you know you've just like hit gold, when something like organically happens like that. There was no planning, it just comes together, and then suddenly like that's a huge part of the identity of the band. But I mean, in a way, like they opened the door of like, well, we can do a song with like all harsh vocals. We can do a song with
Mm.
a mix. We can do a song that's like all clean, or we could even do like, oh, here's the heavy part of the song right at the start. Like, I'm thinking like Piss Christ is like harsh vocals for ages, then it sort of flips over to like more clean vocals like towards the end and stuff. So just
Mm.
just by that one, like by Big God right at the start, they've just completely like opened up all these doors into different songs that, yeah, they were doing it before everyone. So it's undeniable, really.
It's definitely experimental. A lot of the people I know I've listened to Soul of a New Machine, you kind of end up in, I won't say argument because I don't think that's the right word, but you end up in more of a discussion of like, well, what were they? Were they industrial? Were they death metal? Were they grindcore?
Yeah,
What were they? And I mean that's the beauty of Fear Factory in general. They talk about experimentation a lot, and I suppose they do to a good extent. But I think if you're looking for sort of the most mix of the ingredients, maybe a bit more of this here, a bit more of that there, I say it's definitely the album where it was. Certainly not what you expect song on song. If you listen to Demanufacture or Obsolete, any of their albums really, apart from maybe Archetype and Transgression, because I don't think they follow the same sort of formula,
yeah,
but it kind of has that sound, it has that feel. It feels like you're reading a book, and you can go chapter by chapter and nothing feels out of place, but
yeah,
you can swing so fast and so far with Soul of a New Machine that you really don't know what you're going to get. Like some songs, I'd say are pretty much straight up death metal,
yeah.
but then others, you sit there and you think, well, no, that's really industrial. However, I'd say there are elements of grindcore there. If
Yeah,
you
yeah.
listen to
So
it.
there's like those are like the three main genres, isn't there? You got like industrial death metal and a bit of grindcore. And
Mm.
in some songs they lean towards one more than the other. But then on top of all of that, you've also got like, yeah, just experimental elements and like the clean vocals and stuff. So it's like already just for a first album, super interesting mix of stuff. Like in a time where like death metal was just getting popular in like the late 80s, early 90s. So like,
Mm.
is at a time where bands are still just figuring out like that one genre. They're already
Yeah,
jumping
what
in
is
with like, oh,
this?
we're just gonna throw everything at it and have their own like identity. Like, I personally love loads of like the death metal bands and stuff. Um, but yeah, it's so interesting to see what they were doing at the same time with like, like they just skipped like the solos and stuff. Like, whereas in other death
Mm.
metal bands, that's like a big part of it coming from like thrash and heavy metal and stuff. And now, but you can tell Fear Factory are just coming from this industrial angle of like, no, we can just, rethink the whole thing in a way. Like, it's going to be more like riff and vocal focused and stuff, which is, it just made them like completely stand out. Like, you can't find anything. I mean, the closest thing you could find is probably like Godflesh, is what most people will say.
Mm.
Even then, that's only like certain parts, isn't it? That wouldn't cover like the whole
Mm.
album. Like, they've taken that Godflesh influence and mashed it together with like, stuff that Dino like, from like death metal bands and thrash metal and stuff. And even like, I mean, I know Dino said like one of his goals at the time was like he had one by Metallica, and it's that the Machine Gun riff and he was like, I want to do that, but all the time. So you could start to hear some of those riffs coming in as well.
It is such a curveball album, isn't it? It is exactly that. It's a curveball because it's so far outfield, and you can't kind of look ahead because everything's so different, and it kind of makes me like, if you go back to Martyr as the title track, it's like, does it set expectations for the album? No, because it's so so wild and so varied that you can't just say the majority of songs follow that structure, that sound, that so on and so forth. It's quite difficult, and because there'd already been so many things going on, perhaps a connoisseur of music might argue there was a lack of industrial polish, if that's the right word, which it really adds to the feel and the flavour of the album, whether it is from the harsh vocals or the way the guitars feel in the mix. It's hard for me to explain in so many words. I've got the idea of what I mean to say in my head, but it's difficult to get it out. But I mean,
it has this cold, dark atmosphere to the whole album. Like that's the one thing that it does. The songs can be very different, but the atmosphere remains the same, which is like really interesting, because normally if your songs are too different, then you lose that. When I'm listening to Soul of a New Machine, it still feels like it has this kind of same wrapper in a way, like, if that makes sense. Like, they don't feel so drastically different that I'm like, oh, this is like a completely different thing now. It still feels like part of the same album.
Exactly, and you find yourself in that situation where I think to myself, if I was going to introduce someone to a band, quite often I'd say, go to the beginning, understand who they are, and then from there you can see the journey. Paradise Lost is a great example because they've had like 3 different eras with 3 very different sounds, with one fan base that's been there all the time, or they've got different fans of different periods. So if I was to recommend a Fear Factory album for someone to jump in, it would either probably Genexus or Obsolete, because I kind of feel that with the curveballs and the fact that Soul of a New Machine keeps surprising you with every track, it's difficult to find the sound because it's not there yet. I think the premise is there, the idea's there.
Yeah, it doesn't represent the entire discography. I mean, nothing really does, because all the albums are a bit different. But it's not like there's no song on there that's like a textbook Fear Factory song, if you know what I mean. It's not like if I was going to show that, I'd probably pick something like, I don't know, the first things that come to mind is like Self-Bias Resistor or like Zero Signal, like something like that. That's kind of shows you everything that they're doing. Whereas Soul of a New Machine is way more like old school death metal kind of thing, more industrial in a way. And like, I'd probably recommend it if I knew someone who's like well into like death metal, and then they might find that a better entry point. But generally, it's probably not the best starting place in a way because of what you just said. But I know some people though who think like, oh, it's still the best Fear Factory album. And I'm like, I respect that. Like, I can see why any Fear Factory album would be your favorite in a way. They all offer something different, and if you're, some people got into the band then, literally with that first album, and then when they changed to like Demanufacture, it was like they weren't like quite ready for that change in a way, and they were enjoying what it was like. But I really like the direction they went, but I also think it's awesome that they have this like different kind of album in their discography.
I think you can fall into that trap, can't you, of being too samey. Like Dragon Force was a wonderful example. When Through the Fire and the Flames came out, everyone I knew was on that song. It was on Guitar Hero, it was everywhere. But a friend of mine bought the album, and I genuinely could not tell where one song stopped and another one started.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like this isn't really what I want. And it's an easy trap to fall into, but I think it's one that Fear Factory, they don't fall into it. And I think Soul of a New Machine is maybe a great example of that. Because if you go through the song list from Martyr into Leechmaster to Scapegoat, Crisis, Crash Test, they're all very different in their own ways, and perhaps the experiment with each and every song between how much you're going to have harsh vocals, clean vocals.
Yeah.
Are we going to have quite a lot of melodic machine riffing, or are we going to have more of just a blend, a thrashy undertone, maybe more death metal, less industrial?
Yeah.
It's hard to really pin it into one place. And I think that's probably why, as much as I can say that my favourite song on that album is Big God Rape Souls, I'd struggle to really rank it from sort of my favourite or the song I could probably listen to the most to the least, because each and every time I listen to the songs, I hear something different. I find something new. And it's quite difficult because I think you could listen to that album 10, 20, 30 times over and you might change your mind every single time.
Yeah, it's true. There's a huge track list thing as well. So there's always my like general favorite ones, but they kind of move around. Like, I'll get to it at the end, like which ones are my favorites and stuff. But yeah, it does change quite a lot on Soul of a New Machine. Like, it kind of depends on my mood, because like if you want something like really heavy, then it might be a different track. You want something more melodic, then it might be like Scumgrief or something. But yeah, that's probably a good segue to go into, like, we'll go track by track, and just like give our thoughts like on that. I mean, obviously we've got to start with Martyr right at the beginning. I always think it's just such a weird, wacky song to start an album. Like, your first album ever, and your first song is Martyr. Like, that's such a choice. Like,
the best way I can describe it is it's like opening a door and somebody punches you in the nose. It's just like such a quick, like, oh Christ, it's in your face. It's quite forward, isn't it? Especially when it gets onto that hook towards the end. Suffer. Bastard, and then you've gone from quite a harsh with the got to get away. I mean, like, very sort of industrial.
Rewinding it right to the start, you've got to think how that song starts with the "what I thought was life." Like, it's such a weird vocal style because he's not. It's like a quiet growl. It's like hard to explain.
I know.
It's a really unusual way to start a song, and then when it does kick in, you've got this like weird ass like repeating riff that just sounds so different. And the reason it sounds so different, I found out, is Dino was like well into techno music, probably still is actually, but back in the 90s especially, it was huge. Like, you got bands like Prodigy and all that techno stuff that was around, and he said he got inspired to write a riff that like that from a techno beat rather than like a metal influence. So that's why immediately you're like, what is this riff? Like, it just sounds so different, and it hits you in the face because it's like, no, you wouldn't have heard anything quite like that before, because it's like it's a proper looping riff, isn't it? Like, it doesn't change lows, it just loops round, which kind of sets like that perfect canvas for those crazy vocals on top of it. And then there's the tambourine. The tambourine is going on with the riff, and you're like, who thought of that? It's genius. On this brutal song.
They have these moments, don't they? Like with Edge Crusher, I wonder who walked into the recording room with one of those double bass cellos and went, "I've got an idea."
Yeah, I know. It's so funny how they sneak those things in there. But yeah, your first song on the first album is heavy as shit, but it also has a tambourine. It's just like, it's so...
And it's never out of place. That's the weird thing. If you were to say it to someone, they'd laugh.
Without it. Yeah, it'd be weird without it.
Yeah. But it is just like a straight punch in the nose. It hits you straight away, and then you've got that moment where you just, it comes together. You have your head banging hardcoreness. But then I think one thing it does establish that I would say is sort of the DNA of Fear Factory is it's melodic.
Yeah,
in the way it gets into those.
It's like a mission statement, because you've got those heavy, like, locked in riffs. You've got the brutal vocals, and then it'll go to like that clean part. So it does kind of like do a bit of everything, and that's true. And I tell you what I really love is the bit you're talking is like dun, dun, dun. Like, it's the way the guitar does it first. The vocals come in. And live it's amazing, isn't it? When that guitar, it just isolated, like, because like that kind of chorus is going to come in, everyone's going to like sing along with it, but it builds such amazing tension.
This is the crazy thing as well, because as you watch Milo do it, it's very much more like Burton at the point that he's perfected the way he wants to his vocals to present in Fear Factory, in the clean and also the growls, the screams, the harsh, so to have heard it both ways, it's just it's crazy to then go back to the original and think, I don't remember it being so raw.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's just like, like you said, it's just very in your face, like from the get-go, pretty much. Yeah, and there's actually, one bit of like re-listening recently, I was like just trying to think of like what makes this song so interesting. But there's a bit where instead of the guitar holding the melody down, like Burton holds it like with just the vocals. And I think the riff
Yeah.
is like, I made a note of it. Like there's a part in the song where the riff is like chugging, and then vocal carries the melody over guitar chugging, which is like, go and listen to it again, you'll see what I mean. So you've gone from the
Mm.
guitar playing the melody to the guitar and vocals playing the melody to then the guitar like chugging with Burton carrying the melody. And I'm like, that's just super interesting that you can take the same melody and then use it in different ways to make the song like more interesting without having to write a whole new piece, like that's what's so cool about it.
Mm.
And that's after listening to that song hundreds of times, only thought about that like yesterday or whenever it was. So
Mm.
yeah, I've got to move on to Leechmaster, I reckon. You said you really like this one, right?
I do. I find it's one of the more aggressive songs on the album, and it's there's more death metal influence on that particular song. I find, and um, some people that I've spoke to about that particular song have maybe said that it feels like the one song that's not necessarily out of place, but felt the most different to everything else on there. It's less about the social, the political, the industrial vibes. It is more just about pure aggression, parasites and things like that, and such a strong track in not just the message, but also just the way the guitars are in that one. It's a real grind.
Yeah, I think like what I picked up on listening to it again is like this actually is like showing what they're going to do on Demanufacture a bit more, because you've got
Yeah.
really syncopated riffs with the drums, like it's locked in, and there's some like power chords like da-na-na-na, like those, like you hear those on like Demanufacture in places as well, so it kind of like shows what they're going to do next in a way. And yeah, it's got that mechanical feel that really got developed on the next album, but you can see the origins of it starting there. I think like listening to the whole album, it's like, yeah, it's one of the most locked in with the drums, which just like, yeah, it's just like heavy as hell, isn't it, really? And oh yeah, I put in on my notes like the drumming is just absolutely relentless on that song, but like in the bed, almost to the level of like it's weirdly soothing, which doesn't make sense because it's such a heavy song, but the drumming is so satisfying. Like it's like Raymond was just on it.
Like, well, that's the thing. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It was just so tight. Like, I could almost argue that in terms of like technical ability, probably just based on the fact that there wasn't a multi-million-pound contract where they could just go and waste time in the studio, get it right, sample, and then get them drums 100% precision perfect. It's not so much like when they've made, say for example, the Industrialist. First time round there was a big thing about the programmed drums, weren't there? But not just mathematically, but mechanically, they're faultless. And I think this album, and especially this song, is a wonderful example of just how tight Raymond was in them early days. It was really,
like no click tracks or anything. Like they're just doing that, like just like by ear. Like it's just crazy, like having that timing. But they just must have rehearsed like a hell of a lot, I think. And I remember like Dino saying he used to put like weights on his arm and stuff. So like when he took them off, it was like having like a really precise like picking hand, but like even more so with Manufacture, right? That's when it was like properly locked in, and you're just like, that's what everyone was like, is this even like real? Like, have you like edited this and stuff? Because it just sounds so precise that there was nothing quite as precise as Fear Factory back in the day, like no click track or anything. Obviously now you've got loads of bands. I guess there's an argument of Meshuggah were doing something similar as well. Kind of like that as well, to be fair to them, but there wasn't a whole lot of bands that were like going for, it was more like you got bands that are going like down the shred avenue of like, what's the coolest solo you can make. You've got like grunge where it's the other way around, where it's like we just want distortion on everything, and it doesn't matter if you hit the wrong chord or whatever, like as long as it's like sounds right, it sounds right. But with Fear Factory it was like, no, we're not even gonna do solos, it's like we're just going to lock these guitars and drums in as tight as possible to get this like really kind of like mechanical, futuristic sound. So, really cool idea.
Yeah, I remember some of the early posters and some of the early pictures of Fear Factory, and you always picked up on just how big Raymond's arms were, his chest, his shoulders, and he just looks like an absolute unit. And you're like, wow, what you must have really put some hours into that. And I think the thing is as well, because it was such a raw mix, and it was so early in the conception of the band, and again, it wasn't an album where you had the luxury of spending hundreds of thousands on precision perfection. It was all done based on the talent of the musician.
Yeah.
If he'd have made mistakes in that recording, you'd have noticed.
Yeah.
I really think you'd have noticed. You'd have gone, I think he's played an extra bass beat there on the bass drum, or he's not quite hit that right. It'd be like so overwhelmingly obvious.
You can tweak like almost everything in post now. Like back then, it's like you couldn't get away with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And a perfect example is if you listen to The Industrialist and then Reindustrialized, certain, like God Eater, for example, that's a song where I find the live drums really bring the soul out of it. But I love the original as well, because I'm a perfectionist and I love that precision perfection.
Yeah.
But not many drummers are that good. Like you say with Meshuggah, Thomas Hawk, his feet can do one thing and his arms can do another, and it's such a beautiful and unique talent. But for Raymond, he was like a machine on this album, and it's a great song to show that off with, as well as just how perfectly and smoothly he could play.
That's like why I had to, when I was getting into Fear Factory, I almost had to rewire my metal brain in a way, because I was coming from that direction of bands like Metallica, Megadeth, Pantera, where it was all about like the awesome solos and stuff as well, and like melodies on guitar. But Fear Factory, it took me a while to like understand. I was like, oh right, it's all about the precision. That's what makes this band so different, is that they're focusing on just extremely tight playing. It's not about like this amazing tapping solo, which I also love. But they were kind of like, no, this is what we're doing, which I kind of respect, because it wasn't like they could have done that and then added some other parts, but it was like, no, we're just going to keep it like precise throughout the whole song, which I respect. It's like they committed to that kind of style, and it really like paid off for them, I think. Also in Leechmaster, there's a really cool part with like reverb. Like I think it's towards the end where like Byrne just does like one word, and it will just echo, and it does another word, like echo. It just sounds so cool, that bit. Just had to mention that. But yeah, next one's Scapegoat, which honestly might be my favourite song on the album. I think, like, objectively, it's one of the best, just because it has the amazing clean part, which just, like, it just completely, what's the word I'm looking for? It matches so well with the harsh bit, right? Like they trade off each other, those sections.
Yeah, and I think it's I think it's one of the, I don't know if groovy is the word, but it's certainly one of the more melodic songs. I thought a very good. Trying to think of the words, but a very good example of where the band would go more in terms of like the industrial side. I thought it's probably the best way to put it. I love how melodic it is. It's definitely a song I can just leave on repeat and go and go and go. But I remember reading somewhere, I don't know if it's true, but there was something said that the song was written about Dino being arrested by the police for something that was like...
I'm not 100% sure on the exact story, but he almost got like fined or imprisoned for some crime he like didn't do, and I don't know the details of what happened there, but it sounds like a really interesting story. I reckon on YouTube there must be a interview about it somewhere in more detail.
I mean, it's difficult for us. I mean, I don't know about you, but maybe I'm generalising if I say for us, but sometimes it's kind of difficult because, I mean, that if you listen to some of the things the band members have said about some of the earlier albums, like whether it's been Dino or Burton or Christian or Raymond, you know, they talk about like the LA riots and stuff like that. Every song has a purpose. You know, it was written about something, or there was a story behind it, and you don't find that with many bands, which is interesting, and I think that's where Scapegoat comes into it as well. Because, like you say, we know there's a bit of a story there, and it's only as I matured as a person and got more of a social understanding and realised that not every country is the same.
Yeah.
You know, you realise pretty quickly that police officers were literally just grabbing Mexicans. You know, I guess they call them people of colour these days, but like black people off the streets. They were just literally like, who can I blame? Who's the nearest minority? And can I get away with it?
Especially
and to
back
think
then, there's like, you know, it was even more unregulated than it is now, right? So that probably was quite a common thing potentially, which is like it's really tragic, like to think that people are getting blamed for like crimes they didn't even like commit. But whatever happened, I'm really glad that like Dino seemed to like, I mean, it doesn't seem like he did any time or anything, and seems like he got out of it, which is really good, because that would have been like terrible at the start of like your career and stuff. Like,
but even just the accusation, I mean, it must have been terrifying.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, our police aren't necessarily the same. My local police officer doesn't carry a gun. You know, now I'm aware that in Manchester and places like that, in cities, police can carry guns. They might carry guns that fire rubber bullets, but we're talking about a country where, you know, the second a police officer feels unsafe, it's straight out, there you go.
Yeah.
You know, you see videos every day on Facebook and stuff like that. So it must have been a terrifying ordeal. But I mean, the song it inspired.
No, it does sound
banger.
Like downtown LA sounded like, I mean, it's still to this day very dangerous in certain areas, like as far as so. And I think they were like around those areas, and yeah, I suppose the police and everyone's just assuming that everyone has a gun. Like, you've probably just got to have that mindset that everyone's got some sort of weapon on them, like, which, I mean, yeah, you can almost see why, like, in a way, but yeah. It's
well, that's the awful thing, isn't it? We can see it from the outside looking in, because we don't live in that country, but on one hand you can say you don't know who's got a gun, and on the other hand you can say, well, I'm pretty sure you can tell when someone's relatively harmless. You don't need to pull a weapon on them.
It's like, you know when someone's a threat or not, right? But yeah. But yeah, onto the song. Like, I've heard comment down on I love the bass under the clean vocals, because it's like it's doing something different to the guitars. It just has such a there's like nice layering going on. You've got like the vocals, the bass, drums, and guitars. They're all like doing something kind of different in that section, which just makes it like, I'm always like listening to that song. I'm always like, yeah, let's come on, bring that section in. But then you almost want it to go heavy again, which is what it does. It kind of just like, it always keeps you interested, that song, because of the changes it goes through. What else did I put? Oh, the riff under that. It's like the no one knows bit. You know, when no one knows, like the riff is like does this like amazing like chugging bit under it, which again is sort of showing where they're gonna go, because like when you start hearing some of the choruses on even to this day, like on some of the new albums, you hear like some chugging bits. It'll be like melodic guitar, and then it'll go into like a chugging bit when Mike Byrne like holds a note or something, and it just sounds like amazing and like very, very Fear Factory kind of sound. I also put it's a unique song, like even within their own discography, even like within Soul of a New Machine. Like, there's nothing quite like this song. It's just kind of stands on its own, and then it's great to see like Fear Factory is still doing it, and Burton with his solo band, like they've been playing it every show, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a staple, and it's one of them. You know, in the vein where I say like I'm not really sure Soul of a New Machine is an album I'd say you should listen to first, because it doesn't quite give you the full feel of the band. But at the same time, I think if you had to pick one out that really felt like everything that came after, it probably would be this song. You know.
Yeah, I would agree with that. This is like, almost like the blueprint, like this. Well, the start of the blueprint is this kind of song in a way.
And the
It
fact
just
it's still
doesn't.
being played live, like you say,
Yeah,
it
it's
tells you
stood the
everything.
test of time. Yeah, it's a great song.
I think they played it the first time we watched them. Did they? I know they played Martyr. I don't remember if they played Scapegoat, but I
I
know
don't think they were playing
I
it
know I
when
have
we.
seen it live.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that one live though at some point. Be great. Um, oh, and also, the main riff, like at the start, like apparently this is the one that sounds a bit like "Blind," by Korn.
Oh right, okay.
Like I know Dino says like because apparently on one of the demos or maybe it was on Concrete actually because he went to like work with like bands like Korn afterwards, that producer. So Dino thinks there might be like a link there with like because if you listen to Scapegoat, it's like it's almost like proto nu metal kind of riff that, which is kind of interesting. So you
Yeah, I see your point.
yeah, listen to it. It is a bit like Blind. I can see what he means. Oh, Crisis is the next song, and you gotta love that Full Metal Jacket sample.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I knew you were going to say that. I was going to bring it up, but no, you beat me to the punch. It is, mate. It's yeah. There's no other way to put it. The second it did that, I just had Private Pile in my head.
yeah.
The chaos of the film. It quite. Yeah, I don't know. It felt quite apt for the song, I think.
Yeah, it does. It feels almost like war in a way. Like it just feels it's such an intense song. There's like what I put down. There's that huge like industrial riff like right at the start. It's just like sounds massive, and it does. It literally sounds like a crisis. It's the only way to explain it.
Yeah, like 1 minute it feels like uncontrolled sort of panic aggression. It feels like it's not something that can be contained, and then it just flips to this controlled pace, more structured and things like that. It's quite, I'd say, artistic, maybe the word, in sort of the experimentation
It's
with that.
very artistic, and like the clean vocals are like super eerie. That's what I remember. Like, it does sound like almost like ghostly in a way. It's really like, oh, yeah, it's probably the most eerie song on the album in a way, but like in a really good way. What else? Yeah, oh, I like that bit when he's just like crisis, and it just like echoes out and stuff. Like, just like I don't know what it is about like Burn, but he just gets away with like repeating vocals. Do you know what I mean? Like if some other bands do it, I get really irritated. But like he just like I'm like keep doing it. If it sounds good, keep doing.
Oh yeah, Martyr's a perfect example, isn't it? But like you say, even with this one, it's another great example of how he can pull it off and where he pulls it off. It's just a shame that every time I listen to it, you just get Full Metal Jacket stuck in your head so badly.
You're right. It does. Yeah, it's been a while since I've watched it. I also put some of the riffs on this song, like they sound like Korn before Korn as well. Like if you listen to a few of them, which is like interesting.
Yeah,
a bit of an influence on them potentially. I don't know.
Well, so someone said this to me when. Oh my God, where were we? I think I were in Manchester somewhere, going to a gig once, and I'd worn a. That's it. My fiance is really big on Ghost. She loves Ghost, and I don't. But she wanted to go and see him. She didn't want to go alone. She was struggling to get friends, people work and stuff like that. So I went along, and I had a Fear Factory shirt on, looking out of place, because of course I would. And someone else had made a comment, and we were funnily enough, talking about Soul of a New Machine. And the gentleman in question he were a bit older than me, sort of salt and pepper hair and stuff. And it were like, yeah, I'm surprised it didn't turn out a bit like Korn. It's like, if you listen to some of the early tracks like Crash Test and that, and it got me thinking, and maybe I just didn't put the connection there myself until someone else said it, but when they did, it's hard to get it out of your head, isn't it? That you're like, bloody hell, I could have imagined that being Jonathan Davis, and,
No, it's just interesting that they had some of this, like, they were definitely part of that nu metal beginnings, like maybe not spoken about nearly as much as some of these other bands, but it's almost like because that they were doing that before the others in a way, so it's almost like secondary, I guess, is the way that has happened. But no, it's interesting. And then like I feel like Demanufacture, they kind of went away from riffs like that. like the ones on like Scapegoat, Crash Test, to the more like mechanical like holder riffs. But then like they revisit that on Obsolete and Digimortal as well. But like I know on Obsolete they went for that more like earthy kind of feel, didn't they? More like organic sounding. So they kind of went back to a few of those riffs again, which is interesting. I think like because they knew like that sound was like really taken off around that time as well, so it makes sense.
Yeah, it is frustrating, and it's one of the things that we said between ourselves. It's not just an excuse to talk about Fear Factory again, but I think we both agree that this is a band that realistically probably should be a hell of a lot bigger than they are. You can see the inspiration in so many bands, and people have said like, "Oh, have you listened to this? Have you listened to that?" I'm like, "Oh, you'll like Fear Factory if you like that." They kind of look at you like you're silly, and you're like, just because they're not new metal, or they don't fit into that box the way you want them to, doesn't mean that they're any less influential.
Yeah.
You can, like you said a moment ago, there's sort of early Korn vibes in that song in particular. But just anyone who kind of did that clean, harsh vocal mix with, even if it were just, I don't know, thrash metal or industrial metal or whatever, you can pull a lot of that back to Fear Factory.
Yeah, but it
People
seems like
forget.
in reality, a lot of people are thinking about more like the whole like melodic metalcore, like early 2000s, which I can see why, because there's a lot of that, and that's when it started to become like really popular, right? So it's almost like a secondary thing. It's like they influence them, which then influence a lot of bands that are going now. So people are sort of going like, oh, they got those ideas from like I don't know, Killswitch Engage or
Yeah,
Butterfly
but where do you
Valentine or
think they got
Trivium.
their ideas from?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
if you
exactly.
dial it back, a lot of it. I mean, I say a lot of it. Everything can be drawn back to Soul of a New Machine. Like that's where it started. Like these songs, like well, even before technically with demos and stuff. But like as a full length, it is songs like Scapegoat and Big God and like now like almost the majority of modern metal bands, they are doing a mixture, right? Like some of the biggest bands out there right now, they're doing a mixture of vocal styles, and it's like crazy to me that if you go back far enough, it's kind of stemming from this album. And yeah, and the obviously Fear is the Mindkiller like EP as well, like with the more electronic stuff. That was like even more. You can hear a lot of that in like modern music as well. It's like they were so far ahead of the game. It's like it's crazy to think about. Yeah, we'll touch on Crash Test next. I really like the lyrics of the song because it's quite like a ballsy move to like sing about something like real like that, like very real, and it's actually a massive problem still. Like not just then, like 30, almost 35 years later, like there's still loads of animal testing going on, which is like usually for like the most pointless stuff you can imagine as well. It's like even in England, like they still test on like dogs and stuff. I don't know if you know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It got me thinking. Like even it kind of touches upon the how people are expendable. It's such a. I was having this conversation the other day with a friend of mine. We were talking about like paid healthcare and stuff like that in countries where that is a sort of thing, and it's like you've literally got a price tag on your head. And it's crazy to think that in certain situations people can think that of people, animals, and things like that, and it's an awful thing to think about to an extent, but it is the reality of where we live. It makes me think of that line in The Predator when bless him, Carl Weathers gets in Arnold Schwarzenegger's face and is like, "You're an expendable asset." This song really reminds me of that because it just sort of brings you back down to earth a bit and goes, you might think you've got rights and stuff like that, but trust me, they can easily be taken away.
Yeah, that is 100% like the feeling I get from it as well, and it's almost like the definition of a Fear Factory. The song is like you've got a facility. You've got. I only like just thought about this now. I was like, wow, this really actually fits the name because it's like you've got this facility that has for like a very specific purpose, and it is generating fear in a factory. Like, so it literally is that, which is like crazy to think about. And I wonder if that's what got like Burton thinking like partly about those vocals, is like what is a Fear Factory, and this would definitely like tick that box.
Yeah,
it's
because
kind of crazy that like it was on, you know, like all the way back then, like these kind of lyrics, like where you've got bands at the same time that are just singing about like, you know, in death metal, like just the most ridiculous like gore lyrics and stuff that just have absolutely no meaning. Like there were some bands that were more like politically focused, I guess. I'm not too good at knowing who did what. I'm a huge fan of Death though, and I know on like Spiritual Healing, which was like 1990, and like all the albums after that, they completely ditched like that gore aspect, and it was all like real world focus, which I think was like a really cool, like mature choice, like from Chuck. So I don't know if this was partly like maybe like him doing that helped open the door for like bands like Fear Factory to be like, oh yeah, we can make it like way more like based in reality. Like not everything has to be like some made up reality, like, you know, fiction.
Yeah, I think this is where the machine aspect of it really comes into play, you know, and becomes a big part of the future of the image of the band, like, you know, the cover art and things like that, the themes that go on throughout the different albums and stuff. And I remember playing I was playing Oddworld once, if you've ever played it, Abe's Odyssey, and it just shows this meat factory, and you see what's going on with the experimentation and how different life forms are being treated, and just the shit that it's pumping out into the atmosphere. And it just really made me think of that song, and I was like, just imagine something like that for real. You know, we laugh and joke about it, but you know, the way things are being produced at the minute, certainly military and weapons and stuff like that, it's quite harrowing to look at a building and think, yeah, I don't like that. Just like a black cathedral on the horizon, and you're like, I don't like what's in there.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like at the start I was like, oh, Fear Factory is a bit of a stupid name, like I don't know, I wasn't quite getting it. But like the more I looked in, I mean, I'm not really a huge lyrics guy, but the more I looked into it and the more I thought about it, I'm like, actually there are like so many Fear Factories on this planet, and you could argue that not just like actual factories, but like, you know, the way certain like governments are set up and things, like it's almost set up to you know, I'm thinking of the Song Fear campaign and stuff already, where it's like,
yeah,
things are designed in a way to control you through fear, and like so it's actually very relevant. So yeah, the more time's gone on, the more I'm like, no, it's a really good name.
It's like how the media are now. The media are literally a fear factory. If they're not reporting on something negative or controversial, they don't get clicks. If they don't get clicks, they don't get business.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a crazy way to think about it, and it's the same as everything. It's like fear sells,
Yeah.
but maybe it sells because you kind of think that, like, you know, if you buy into the bullshit, you'll be all right because you're educated, you're aware, you know.
Yeah.
And it's quite a harrowing thing that, I mean, especially in an age with like fake news and AI and stuff like that, things that Fear Factory have been talking about for years. You know, even if you look at like Securitron, that's a big, you know, look at our society now. People getting arrested for Facebook posts. People, there's the question of freedom of speech and stuff like that. And it really does feel like the machine is clamping down digital ID. You know, it's. I can just imagine Dino going, I was telling you about this 30 years ago. You know.
Yeah, 100%. And like the name like just becomes more and more relevant each day, really, sadly.
Yeah. And it's crazy to think that someone was having these conversations all that time ago, sort of seeing into the future in a way. And it must be such a surreal experience to have had those conversations and seen it in play today. Yeah. I'd feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, me too. Like, just thinking about it now, it's like, oh, like what's coming next?
It's like a horror film. It's like Alien, isn't
it? Yeah, because I think what they did is like they would like, I mean, Dino and Burton were like well into their sci-fi. I mean, maybe even Raymond, I'm not sure. But, like, it was well into their sci-fi, and I think they sort of applied it to a more like grounded view of the world. And I mean, you could argue on like Obsolete Digimore that goes a bit more like even further into the future kind of thing, but. Like even like from these first couple of albums, you can see like they took ideas from like these sci-fi things, and they were like, well, where is this happening already? Like right now, kind of thing. Because I know like especially Demanufacture was more focused like on like what was happening in the world like right then, right? And then obviously Digimortal's more like what's coming like in the future and stuff.
It were more of a metaphor at the time, wasn't it? Because you kind of saw the things happening around you, and it felt like a stretch to say these things and be like, well, one day it's going to be exactly like this. People laugh, people say, yeah, no, it won't be like that. Stop being silly. And then you fast forward from say 1992 to 2022, 2025, and a lot of these things, sadly, they are reality.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm just thinking, like, obsolete. It's like, at the time, it's like kind of like, oh, this is a really cool, like, sci-fi concept. I like, if you like Terminator and stuff, you're already going to be into it. But, like, yeah, as time's gone on, it just feels like we're going towards that world, like, every day, like, a step each day towards that direction. And it seems less, like, comical and make-believe each day, doesn't it? Which is kind of terrifying. Yeah. But the song itself, like I do really like it. It's quite like a short song, isn't it? So I think it's good. It doesn't it doesn't outstay its welcome.
Outstay its welcome. Yeah.
I've put it's kind of like cavemanish, like in a way. Like it's actually like just like basic riffs and just like just insane vocals, but it does what it sets out to do, and it doesn't outstay its welcome.
It does its job. Yeah.
Yeah. I've put is it Flesh Cold is the next song, and I have put, like I don't find this one as memorable. I never have. I think it's more is it more grindcore? I think it might be. I put there's some pretty cool like syncopated riffs in there, but there's something less memorable about this one. It's almost like, I think because Crash Test is before it, it's like Crash Test kind of does it better in a way. It's like, that's kind of my thoughts on this one.
Yeah, and then you've got Lifeline afterwards as such a bleak and really dark, nihilistic track as well. I think maybe being between those two songs hasn't quite helped, because I don't think it is one of the more memorable ones for myself. It's still a song I enjoy listening to, but it almost kind of feels like it doesn't know what it is.
Yeah, I get that.
Again, you could relate that to Blade Runner. These guys clearly love Blade Runner, because I'm sat there thinking, how can she not know what she is? Like, how can the song not know what it is? It's crazy, and it gives this idea. I mean, certainly with the slower sections as well, and how it kind of gives this idea between flesh and machine and things like that. You see the Terminator influences. Yeah. But I feel the slower bits of it sort of take you out of the song.
Yeah.
That was the way I felt. And then when it kicks back up, yeah. It's a tough one.
Bad song. And we were saying earlier, there's pretty much no skips through the whole catalogue of Fear Factory, which is like, I can't say that.
Yeah,
I can't say that about many
bands. I can just let it play.
Yeah. So
no.
I still definitely listen to it, yeah.
I mean, I don't think there is such a machine that could, a CD that could do it, but if I could literally put every album start to finish, I'd do it. I mean, if my mum can do it with Lord of the Rings, all extended editions, I'd happily do it with the Fear Factory catalogue.
Yeah, it's an insane discography, like so strong. Next song, Life Blind. Yeah, this one's awesome actually. It's
a dark song.
That start-stop riff and the clean vocal parts, like, it's really unique and like unexpected. Never really heard anything like that. Like, even from them, again, it's like there was nothing before that, nothing after it like that. I think that's one thing you could argue for Soul of New Machine, especially with these like clean vocal parts, is like they tapped into something that even they couldn't kind of like recreate. It was like these unique, like, it's very artistic in a way. It's like it's just like a moment in time whereas like, you've got songs from, you could argue there's some songs on like The Industrialist, and then you've got like Genexus, and you could be like, oh, that's a bit like that one, there's similarities. But you look at a song like Life Blind and like, fuck knows, it's not like anything. It's not like anything from another band. It's not like any other song from Fear Factory. And I'm like, that's something to be proud of, is that you've tapped into like real art there, right? Like when you can't even I mean, maybe they didn't want to try and reproduce that. They've kind of just been like, this is what we've made. We're just gonna leave it at that, and that's almost like it's almost like a painting, isn't it? It's like you've made it. You're not going to try and make another one because you've already done it. And I think that's what I really like about this song. It's just like it's very artistic.
Yeah, I think that the word that always came to my mind was relentless. Like it is just relentless. It doesn't give you any relief. You know, if you're listening to that song, it not in terms of the sound of the song, but it's almost like Bleed by Meshuggah. It just doesn't let up. And sort of how bleak and apocalyptic it is as well. It's the idea of like loss of purpose, loss of autonomy, and things like that. Again, it really makes you think of like where we are now. I mean, where I work is going through a lot of changes with AI. It's probably going to cost some jobs. Are we the first? Absolutely not. Are we going to be the last? Absolutely not. I mean, you look at the games industry, they're losing hundreds of thousands of jobs to the fact that AI can pick up, it can bug test, it can create art, it can create music. Yeah. You know, and this song, I think, really maybe gives a little bit of weight to that when you think about it at, you know, some length. I would actually probably say that this is one of the most underrated tracks on the album, if not the one for me that I don't think people talk about it enough.
No, and when I revisited it, like I've been listening to the album like a few times through before doing this, and that was the one when I was actually looking at like ranking. I was like, wow, this is like quite high up there because it's just that uniqueness about it. And you said about AI making music, I'm like, this is one of those songs that like AI even just like couldn't touch. You know, this takes like humans doing a very specific sound to come up with something like as unusual as this. And
it's like it was designed to fool it, weren't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Try and replicate this.
That's an interesting way of thinking about it. And like I also kind of love the there's a bit at the end where there's like just the clean vocals and the guitars cut out. I think it's just drums. It's either drums, bass, and vocals, or just drums and vocals. I can't think right now, but it just sounds incredible.
Yeah.
And when it comes back in, it just hits 10 times harder, and that's like one of my favorite parts of the song. And there's some bits where like I want to say the lyrics are like all is lost or something like that, and he's like, but I'm like really just like doubles down on like lost. Like he's like, it's not quite a growl, it's just like a really like heavy like clean vocal in a way. I can't really explain that, but like it's just so I keep saying it. It's just a very unique song and underrated. Actually, very underrated, like you said.
One of my favourite films of all time, and this is probably my most controversial opinion, but I'd say probably my favourite film of all time is Alien 3. Okay. And some people would take that as you know, that's like spitting at the saviour. You just don't do it. You know, nobody liked that film, and I know that, but this song reminded me of it so much.
Oh, right.
Like when you can see, I don't know how to put it, when you can see the beauty in it, then I think it changes your perception on a lot of things. You know, people hated the movie because it was so bleak, it was so nihilistic. You know, there was a lot of nihilism, there was a lot of like religious undertones, and this idea of I know it's an alien, but sort of man versus creature / man versus machine, if you look at it from the same aspect. And like you say, the sections with just the drums, I know the specific bit you're talking about. Yeah. There is a bit in the movie where there's a similar sort of song that plays where these three prisoners try and attack Ripley. And again, it just brought me back to that moment. And I thought, you know, it's a shame the song never ended up in the film, you know, to say that licensed music quite often ends up in these films. I mean, take Terminator 2, for example, Guns N' Roses, there were loads of stuff in there, weren't there? Yeah. But I just feel like it was a song that I can relate to so many things. And I think that's probably the reason, why I do think it's quite underrated. It deserves a lot more love, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, no, it's not one I hear people talking about much, so that's for sure. Next one's Scum Grief, which is just like, I mean, what a song, right? It's arguably, at the minute, I'm probably enjoying this the most for some reason. Like, I don't know if objectively it's like the best, because I still think like maybe Scapegoat, but there's something about Scum Grief that just it's probably the most. Would you say it's the most melodic song on the album? I think it might be in a way.
Possibly, it gives. I think it.
It's probably the most epic feeling to me. It's got the most epic, like it's just that big chord, like dun, 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 dun. And then like the clean bit is just like wow.
Somewhere between Scapegoat and Scum Grief for me is probably the most melodic, but I think you've hit the nail on there. It does feel like an epic.
Yeah.
You know, it's got that sort of grand overtone to it, and those chords when they hit is almost like an orchestra when you do.
Yeah, I don't know. Like when it hits, it just feels like home in a way. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm just like, oh, I feel like yes, like it's it's that fucking.
This is what us metalheads live for.
Yeah, it's just like it shouldn't make sense because it's just like quite a simple like chord, but you're just like, oh, I just feel like satisfying song, I guess.
When it works, it works. I mean, if you write it in such a way that it just feels right, you know what I mean, go for it.
Yeah, I put that it's iconic, and I also put that it has quite like a groove metal feel, like which is again leaning towards the direction they were going, but it definitely has like a bit of a groove feel to it, I think.
Yeah, and I think it kind of reminds me not of the sound, because the two very different things, and it'd be ridiculous to compare the two in sort of a sound aspect, but it almost reminds me of a Therapy for Pain, in sort of when you're listening for a Therapy for Pain, you've got that doom, 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 but when that first one hits you, you're just like, oh, this is perfect.
You can't beat that.
Yeah. It's almost like someone's defibrillated you with that first one, and then the rest of it is just the elation afterwards, you know.
Yeah, 100%. And I was actually like psyched to see Burns playing this live as well. Like I watched the video and I was like, oh man, that is, I don't know, I felt emotional. Like just like so happy to think that, you know, like things have happened with the band, like, you know, members have gone different directions, but he's still up there playing the song like that, and it's just like amazing to see that, you know, guys are still playing these songs like all these years later in whatever form that might be. Like that's something to be super happy about. You know, some people get injuries, they like die, like all kinds of things happen. Some people just quit music altogether. I know some bands like that, they've just completely disappeared out of the whole scene. But then like, you know, I think Dino and Milo, they've been doing this song as well this year, if I remember right, maybe at a few shows.
Yeah, because there was something for a while, weren't there, not long back, where they were saying about this supergroup with X Fear Factory and X this and X that, and you know, I think it was Raymond who were involved, and he said himself, like, I haven't, or maybe it was Christian who was involved, but there was something mentioned about Raymond, and he said something to the effect of, I've not even been playing drums.
Yeah,
you know, I've not, which is it's a shame when you think of this, for example, you know, and those songs that are still being played today, some 33 years later. The fact that it stands the test of time shows that these are iconic tracks, as you say.
Yeah.
And it's definitely up there, not just for the album, but probably for the band, I'd say.
Yeah. I think like this is, when I saw that video of him doing it, that's what really gets me down, is there are a lot of people who are like, you see comments on like Fear Factory videos and they're like, oh, come on, Dino, it's time to hang up the guitar, like just give it a rest. And likewise, you see on on Burton's videos, like, oh, like this, you know, just
there's no Fear Factory without you. It's finished.
Yeah, and I'm just like, that is crazy. That to me, that there are people out there like wishing this away, when, you know, there are bands that, you know, someone's died and they can't continue, or like I said, someone's injured, like whatever it might be, and then you've got people on the internet like wishing this away. Like that's so sad that, you know, these guys are up there like doing their art, and there are people that are still like, oh, just like don't bother, like why even voice that?
Well, this is it, and as a band over the years, you know, we've seen lineup changes, we've seen people come, people go, you know, and I think we were talking about it the other day, and I said, you know, the biggest sort of thing, because they've been there the longest, is the Dino Burton split, and in a way it feels like you're stuck between two parents. Because I think if you're being honest with yourself, I think the hardcore fan base love them both, for their own reasons. Obviously,
at the end of the day, the band would not be what it was without either of them, because like and Raymond and like those three especially is you couldn't have one without the other in a way. Like they came up with that sound, but yeah, especially like Dino's riffs and Burton's vocals. Like you can't. It's hard to pick sides when there's a band that wouldn't exist without both of them. It took both of them to make that sound. So
exactly, you almost don't want to. That's the thing as well. I think if you're a Fear Factory fan like myself, who doesn't maybe have like a bad album, or I say not a bad album, Transgression weren't amazing, but I don't hate it. It's grown on me quite a lot in recent years, as we were saying earlier, certainly with the remaster and so on and so forth.
I'm looking forward to that, it's that controversial episode, because we both like it.
I don't think Dino want to be on that one. No. Yeah, Dino, do you want to come and talk about Transgression? No.
We'll leave that for another day.
But it's crazy to think, isn't it? It just like, why would you write off the future? Like, why would you not see where it goes from here? And fair play to Burton as well. I get it. His voice has changed. He wants to pursue his own things. He probably could have done maybe another 10 years of Fear Factory, but what would his voice be like at the end of it? And
would he be enjoying himself? Which is the big question. Like, you're only on the planet for a limited time, and if you're like, I really want to go explore this art in this different way, like you got to just like do that, right? Like you shouldn't be staying in a band because like that's what the fans want. You've got to do what's right for you first at the end of the day. And like I said, like if it feels right to someone to go and quit music, then like they have every right to go and do that. Obviously it'll make us sad, but it's not about us at the end of the day. Like you can do whatever you want, and that's why I'm just like grateful to see that these guys are still like making music. They're still getting on the stage playing shows. Like we live in a time where that's still happening, and that's amazing.
Exactly. I weren't particularly big on Archaea. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it were anything special. But then, like, listening to that first Divine Heresy album, I was like, yes, Dino's alive, boys. He's here. And the elation I got from that album, because it felt like it should have been Fear Factory almost, although I would say it's definitely got more of a Mexican sort of Aztec feel to it. At least I thought so. Like you say, if the people making these silly comments would have said stuff like that, you'd have never got what we have today. So, it's kind of like, if you've nothing good to say, don't say anything at all, sort of thing.
That's how I feel about it. But obviously, people can type whatever they want. But I just think it's just ridiculous. But that's the internet for you, isn't it?
I suppose people could argue we're being too positive.
Maybe, but I don't know. I just think like for some people it takes something serious for them to be like, oh, like now that's gone. Like the only way I can explain it is like there's a band you love and like someone dies in it, you're devastated, aren't you? And it's like that's just gone forever. Like especially if it's a member that can't be replaced. Like I was saying earlier, I'm like a huge Death fan, and without Chuck, it's just never the same thing. It never will be. I mean, they do Death to All, which I'm looking forward to seeing at some point, which is like a good like legacy act. But like Chuck was he was the main songwriter. He's the vocalist. He plays the only one to play guitar on all albums, and like he's just gone and can't be replaced. So if you have a band like that, one of your favorite bands of all time like that, I think it gives you a bit of a different perspective of like. I mean, I was alive when they were going, but obviously I was too young to see them anyway. But yeah, it just gives me a different perspective. Like, wow, I live in the world where I can go and see Fear Factory songs live still. Like, that's amazing. Like,
yeah.
But if you've got, some people are into like way newer bands and like there's like, everything's good, then maybe you're not thinking of it in such a way like that. But yeah, and I'm also a big fan of Children of Bodom, and like Alexei died like a couple of years ago and stuff, and I'm like, well, he's just gone, and like he's the main man again. You can't replace him. So,
mate, I had tickets to see Static X on the Cannibal tour.
Yeah,
and my dad got diagnosed with cancer and I couldn't go, and thankfully he survived and stuff like that. But Wayne, I never got to see Wayne.
Yeah.
Chester, Linkin Park, two members of Slipknot. It's crazy because they don't even have to be old bands.
No.
They can be actually quite modern and quite relevant. It doesn't have to be Ozzy Osbourne or Ace from Case. It could literally be Chris Cornell.
Yeah.
Could be Type O Negative.
It's all mental health as well, isn't it? Because some of these guys like Chester, for example, like he was probably in good like physical health, but his mental health was just like completely like he had problems. So like you can't always see these things coming as well. Like it might not be like a visible thing. So yeah, you never know what's going to happen. Like literally anything can happen, and that's why when bands come, like I'm like I've just got to go. You just got to make it happen, and ideally go a couple of times. Like who knows? And I always think like this is the last time I'm going to see this band, which is a sad thought. But then like if you don't have that attitude, then it's like you'll miss out, and that's why I'm like sometimes I see people on comments and they're just like, oh, I couldn't go because of this, and like it's just like I mean your excuse was like huge, like real excuse, and then you see some people I was like, oh, I had to like work or I've got this, and I'm like I reckon you can make it happen. Like if you always like, oh, it's too far away or something. Like it's all about that drive, and yeah, you don't want to feel the regret. It's one thing to get on a train that takes like 6 hours, like it sucks, don't get me wrong, but that's 6 hours, and then you've seen that band, you've had that experience, and then you don't have to live in regret of like, oh, I didn't go, which is like 10 times worse or 100 times worse. Like, yeah, there was like one band this year, and like I actually didn't realize they were playing in London, and I was like, you know what, I've just got to buy that ticket. It's really expensive. Got to get on the train and just go, because like I'm gonna like absolutely regret that. This might be the last time I can see it. So yeah, you just got to take those opportunities when you can, really. Next song. This is like that instrumental track that just sounds like a load of like pots and pans being hit, which is like
Natividad.
Natividad, yeah, but I think it does add to that like industrial vibe. Like it's like a bit of a funny track to me, but I kind of like that they just shoved that in there.
I read something online about this, and like you say, you can't believe everything you read online, but someone said it's the name of Dino's hometown, and I were like,
oh,
I don't think that's right, is it? I mean, I could be wrong.
I think it was called something else, but I can't remember from memory the name of that town. Yeah, but.
Well, this is it. It feels. I won't say it feels out of place, but it does kind of disrupt the flow of the album.
Yeah,
is what I thought, and it definitely adds atmosphere and it adds variety for sure. And it I suppose it's got dabbles of flavour of what's to come in future albums, but
I kind of just found it funny that they like just chucked that in there. Like it's almost like I mean, do you listen to Tool at all?
Yeah.
They've got some of those like funny little tracks in between, and it almost like reminds me. It almost makes me think like, yeah, we're an industrial band, so we're just gonna like make a load of noise for a minute, and I'm like, I don't think it was there for comedy, but I almost see it in a comedy way.
Check this out, guys. We're going to be a prog band for 10 minutes.
Yeah. And I also like what makes me laugh about it is my wife's like well into doing voice notes. Like she does like really long voice notes, and I don't think she does it as much now, but she used to do whilst doing dishes, she would like do like a long one, and sometimes she'd be like, "Oh, listen to this back," because she'd send it to a friend, and you can hear all the pots and pans like getting hit and stuff like she's doing dishes, and I'm like, now
the atmosphere.
This track just makes me think of her voice notes, which cracks me up as well.
It's a nice thing to be reminded of, I suppose. Yeah. It's a bit of a strange track, isn't it? I mean, I wouldn't say it's not memorable. It is, but maybe not for the reason you want it to be.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel out of place, which is weird.
I know.
It's almost like if you've got a song where you're like, where do we put this?
Yeah. I almost wonder whose idea that was and stuff to put that in there.
I want to know if there's any truth in this rumor about, because like you say, I love these on YouTube where it's like, 50 facts about Slipknot with Corey Taylor, whatever, and you sort of get it from the horse's mouth, don't you? Because I think something like that's a bit of a weird rumor or a bit of a weird thing to say. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, if anyone is watching, put it in the comments because I'd love to know if anyone knows where that name's coming from.
Dino, hi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're on to your favourite track.
Oh, you're getting it? Yeah, big one, Big God Rape Souls.
In America Today. It's that intro alone is just like, what the hell? It's so iconic. Like when I first heard that, I was like, what is this? What is this?
It reminds me so much of Terminator 2, but in such a good way, because it's like, it's just screaming about how angry and shit the world is, and in that it ain't any better.
Ironic sense as well, yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you could go back 32 years and tell these guys, it's going to get worse. It's like you think you're angry about what's going on in America now. Let me take you to 2025 and show you a vision of the future. Like that's brilliant. But as you say, when it kicks into that, and you can almost hear the echo of the
bit on the drum, isn't there? Like
yeah,
that is just like. I don't even know who thought of that, but that again is like a genius thing. What even is that? Is it just reverb? Or?
I think it's actually just Raymond very gently going.
That's like
because there's no samples.
Yeah,
and it sounds so. I don't know how to describe it. I used to be part of like a drum band in high school when I studied music, and we did like this African drum thing, and it was interesting to see how they play drums in different ways to make different sounds. And it kind of reminds me of that a little bit. It's very sort of atmospheric. It's almost like it feels like chains dangling from the ceiling and just gently swaying in the wind. It gives you like an idea in your head, and then you go straight into that and the sort of harsh vocals. But I love the interbreaks as well, where you just get that.
It's not even not even lyrics. It's just like, again, it's an art form, isn't it? It's like there wasn't even a need to make that into a lyric. It's just like it's such a great idea. Like there's no rules.
Exactly.
There's no rules to music. You can do things like that. And
exactly, the harmony is great, and it reminds me of like certain future songs that they do as well. I mean, take Linchpin for example. If you're listening to the chorus, on one hand he is singing the "All my life I felt discarded," but in that background you've got that and it sort of brings you back to that, and you think, well, yeah, it can work when it's done well.
Also, another thing I think of Chalk from Obsolete, where it's like, I have become a tyrant. That Big God goes like, look into the eyes of death. It's the trade-off, like a quick rather than like a long period of like harsh, then a long period of clean. It's like the trade-off. I think that's like amazing, and like that's why people used to think there was like two vocalists, and I can see why. So if you hear something like Big God, you're like, that is two people. Like it just sounds like it really sounds like there's two people there.
Even taking out the what's the word? Even taking out the intro, with the spoken part and things like that, it's the way it hits is so different. To me, that song felt like everything leading up to it was the learning experience for this song. That's the way I felt about it, and this is going to be the magnum opus of the album. Maybe it's not. That's just the way I perceive it as a person who's listened, and it feels like a build-up and a build-up and a build-up to this. And when you listen to the content of the song, of the lyrics and stuff like that, like, going back to, say, for example, Alien 3, it released 1992, same year as this, and there were so many things that the producers said, we can't do that because there's quite a sensitive Christian audience who don't want to hear that. So if you think that major film IP with hundreds of millions were being told to shy away from these topics, and these guys just came out and slapped me in the fucking face with the religious undertones and the shock value of it, it must have turned a few heads, I reckon.
Yeah, and it's actually quite a short song. And now I'm thinking about it, a portion of that is
the spoken word, yeah.
And then the outro. Well, the outro is not very long. It's just the Rape Souls bit. It's just they could have probably put that song on for 4 minutes straight, and they were like, "No, we're just gonna do this short and sweet," and it serves the song again to do that, which is just a really cool choice in a way, because I feel like a lot.
It's a song I tend to leave on repeat.
Going on, let's sort of milk it and keep going.
Milk it.
But they're just no, this is done, and I think that's from an artist, from someone who's made music myself, I find that hard because I'm always oh, I need to make a really long song because I've got too many ideas putting into one thing. Whereas they're the other way around. It's no, we've done what we needed to do with it. Let's just stop.
Yeah.
And I think when you've got a song like that, that's what keeps us coming back a lot to it as well, because you're oh, I just need to hear it again. That's why it's always such a treat to hear this song. But yeah, that intro is just so iconic, isn't it?
And when you're really getting into it and you're on a roll and you just think, oh God, that is such a great song, you put it on repeat, and like you say, when you get back to the spoken words at the end of the song, you realise how short it is, but you think, I enjoy it so much because it's fleeting. It's not there very long. I look forward to that chorus bit, that hook, that whatever, and then you're back to the beginning and it's just quite a quick, whereas, Dream Theater pulled Octavarium out for 25 minutes?
Yeah.
At some point you just there is so much is too much of a good thing.
Yeah,
so maybe
I've got some albums and songs that are really long, so I do like some of my prog stuff as well. But you've got to do it right, haven't you? If you're going to do a song that long, yeah.
Yeah, and I think this was just the right amount of experimentation and the right length. Yeah. I think could it have been a bit longer? I'd have said maybe about 30 seconds or something.
Yeah.
Would you have made it a bit shorter? No, I think you'd have ruined it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but yeah, at the same time, yeah, if they tried to make it 5 minutes, then it would probably feel overdone. So,
you feel like you're dragging it out then just for the sake of, like you say, thinking, oh, we're onto something with this one. Yeah. But then what do? Do you play the main riff again and just add in another interlude? Or at that point, you're not writing a song, are you? You're just trying to extend something for the sake of making it longer.
It'd be interesting to hear the very original version of this song, because I know it started off completely different, apparently. Maybe it's more
I remember
that grindcore bit, the Rape Souls. It's just mental at the end, isn't it? I love that. Yeah.
It makes me apprehensive because on one hand I'm I want to know what it sounded like originally, and then I'm actually maybe I don't. It's
perfect the way it is. Also, question: is the spoken bit at the start? Is it Burton? It really sounds like him.
Yeah, I believe so.
It almost sounds like a sample because of how iconic it sounds, but no, I think it's just him.
Well, that's what I mean. It reminded me very much of Terminator 2. It had sort of Sarah Connor vibes. Not that it's a female voice, but it just sort of it's that kind of anger that you think. It's something we do quite well here in Britain, innit? We can look at ourselves, our country, and the way we're going, and we can be quite facetious about it. And we don't mind looking at ourselves in the mirror and going, "What are we doing?" But not in a sense.
It's what everything he's saying, and then at the end, it's "I love America," and it's that's almost the twist in a way.
Yeah.
But
that was us 100 years ago. In a less developed British society where we were angry about everything because it was industry and everything were changing, and it was sort of I could understand crime, everything changed. It just, I don't know. I think it was very relevant for modern America when it was released. It was definitely a a sort of a clap back at the state of affairs and how society was, but it feels like for us we were a bit past that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you disagree. I don't know, but I mean, it's still a young country, isn't it? You know, it's only about 450 years old, something like that. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You know, to have that kind of anger.
Those numbers that he's saying at the start are probably amplified by like so much more now, because population growth. It's just going to be worse. Like, it's hard to wrap your head around those statistics. Like,
it's not even a big deal anymore. You know, if someone was brutally raped and murdered, as he says in the beginning of it, or how many people are raped, well, not just raped but murdered every single day. You know, it used to be that one person who suffered an awful experience like that, it was a national news story. You know, it was all over America. It was all over every news channel we had. Now you get several a week.
Yeah.
You know, some of them don't even make the newspapers. Some of them don't even make the news.
No, it's a common thing over the whole planet. Sadly, yeah. It's
quite disgusting, really. But I think that's why it's still a relevant song as well, because it's like if you felt as passionate and angry as about the numbers that it was back then surely today you'd be. Oh.
Honestly, is it just me, or there isn't a Fear Factory song that isn't still relevant today? Like lyrically, like they're just like, I think all of it can still be applied, which is like, that's quite amazing writing that you knew like this is a problem now and it's going to be a problem then. Like, I mean, maybe they didn't know for sure, but they were like, I don't see this going away, kind of thing.
Well, this is it. I were reading a news article on some metal. Like, I don't know whether they're a Metal Hammer or something to that effect, some Facebook page the other day where they just made like an opinion piece literally saying, you know, it's crazy how Fear Factory were talking about this stuff in like 95, 92, 98, 2000, and it's really, really relevant today.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, it's wild. When I first heard that intro, I thought it was taken from like a film or something. I don't know. I just thought it was like something like in the media or something. No, I think they've just like come up with that.
I'm pretty sure it's Burton, but I'd be happy to be wrong. You know, I can't remember where I'd read about it.
Like, because I know, you know, we know how he sounds like. It does sound like him, so I'm assuming it is him. But yeah, again,
I'm going to have to Google it. I'm going to have to Google it quickly. I think it's just one of those that I can't wait to see it in a comment. I need to know for myself.
Yeah, it's bothering me as well.
Let's have a look. Come on.
It almost just, when I heard it, I was like, this almost sounds too iconic to be like original, if that makes sense. But
let's have a look. And as per usual, there's not very much information. No. It's been a difficult album to sort of research because I was looking for like trivia and things beforehand, but there's not a great. No, there's not a great. I mean, it says on the credits, programmed by Burton C. Bell, programmed by Intro Burton C. Bell. So I'm guessing so, but again, I'm happy to be wrong. I think because of the age of it, and also because we're talking like very early Fear Factory, aren't we? There wasn't great documentation about, you know, the internet. It were all magazines, if anything, and you know, at that point in time, they were just starting, weren't they? So it'd be interesting to see if maybe some of the members of the band would comment on it at some point, if they're, you know, up for talking about the early days and where they came up from.
I can't think of anything really. The only thing that, I mean, it reminds me more of like a punk thing, that intro. Or also, like, you've got bands like Rage Against the Machine. That's something I could see them doing in a way. Something like that. Like something, they have some spoken word bits where it's like, wow, like crazy things like that, yeah.
It does give me a bit of like Sex Pistols vibe, but from the angrier stuff, not the popular, you know, mainstream stuff. Some of the other stuff they did where they really had a message.
Yeah, definitely. No, it hits hard. And it's like, you'd think an intro like that, you might get bored of hearing it like over and over, but you don't. It just feels like it is part of the song. Like, I feel like I've got to have that first. Like, I wouldn't skip past it, yeah. What have we got next? A Rise Above Oppression. I've put it's got like groove metal feels again, and again it's actually less than 2 minutes long, this one, which again when I looked
Yeah, I
at it,
don't think it is a
that's
very
crazy.
long song, is it? No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also got another one of those like crazy endings on it, a bit like the last song. So yeah, I don't know if the placement is quite right, but I think it's a good song.
It was definitely a song that I always used to think to myself, oh God, is that over already? It felt like it, not that it overstayed its value kind of thing, but it almost feels like it's finished too quick, and you're like, oh.
I think that's the grindcore influences coming in, because a lot of grindcore songs are literally like 2 minutes or less. It's not a genre I know much about. I'm really dug into it, but I know that they do like really short songs sometimes.
I remember listening to Napalm Death at one point, and they've got like a 4-second song called "You Suffer." So I mean, that's far too short.
Even less than that, yeah. It's like 2 seconds or something.
It's difficult as well, because when you have short songs like that, I find it's difficult to really get into it. Like, you can listen to it on repeat and stuff, but if you're really enjoying, say, a certain riff or a certain part of the song, it doesn't stay around long enough for you to really enjoy it. It's like bite-sized pieces, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think that makes it more like, it's more digestible in a way. I feel like, yeah, maybe the placement of that song, I don't know. But then, can you fit that in anywhere else better? I don't know, really.
Well,
but
kind of the story of the album, innit?
Yeah, I haven't got much more to say about that song, really, because it's quite a short song. Self-Immolation is the next one. I've put that, I think this is probably the most industrial sounding on the album, because it's got that repetitive nature in it, and like it's quite unique again. Like the guitars actually go a bit higher up on the neck, don't they? It's like like that bit, like in there. Again, it almost feels like that techno. It feels like that techno influence coming in on this track, where they were.
Yeah.
You can hear they were pulling influences from places like completely different to where others were in a way.
I think it's definitely like the last big song on the album for me, and I think we sort of briefly discussed this before recording, didn't we? I think after this it gets sort of less memorable, but I mean, as sort of a last big song, if you will,
I personally think this is where they probably could have wrapped the album up, and it would have been a bit better that way. And I actually would have ended on Scum Grief, because I think that's just like a really nice closing track. Which again, didn't think about that until recently. Because I got in this mindset with when I was listening to Transgression, I ended up reordering it. We'll get to that in another episode, but it's the same with Soul of a New Machine. I'd probably make less tweaks to Soul of a New Machine than I have with Transgression, but just like a personal thing, I think I would like it to end on Scum Grief. It just has a bit of a finality to it, I guess.
I think we just got to remember it's the first album, and you know, by this point there's an idea, but it's not polished, it's not rounded, and no, that's not to say it's a bad album by any stretch of the imagination. No. It's a great album, but it's got more highs and more lows, and it's more noticeable as well in it, the changing shift, the changing tone between songs from more industrial to grind to death, from harsh to clean. And I think you are right. I think this is probably the most industrial song on the album, and probably gives more of an insight as to how those influences sort of leak into future records like Demanufacture, Obsolete. I think it's difficult to say Digimortal, because the more I think about it, the more I do think that's maybe a bit too electronic, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't know. Digimortal could be argued that it's one of the least like industrial. There's not a whole lot on it. That is.
Yeah.
They just went on a different sort of like journey for that one, which I can see why. Like, it was like popular sort of style at the time, like you were saying to me earlier, like the producer influence, the record label influence and stuff, and like I guess a lot of industrial stuff just wasn't very in then. I don't know. You had stuff like, was it like Marilyn Manson and stuff like Rammstein? So I guess it was, but nu metal was just so big, wasn't it, that it was kind of like taking over a bit.
Yeah, I think towards the start of Fear Factory, as you rightly say, I don't think there is a great deal. I remember there's a song on, speaking of Mortal Kombat again, there's a song called Juke Joint Jezebel. It's a remix of a song by a band called something like KDF something like that.
Yeah.
And the kind of like the Rammstein before Rammstein,
Yeah.
and as much as you could say, as much as you'd like to say perhaps they had some influence on the industrial side of Fear Factory, you really can't say that, because it's a lot more poppy, it's a lot more upbeat. It is metal per se, or it just about is on the right side of the boundary for it, but it doesn't quite bleed into the future of music so much as maybe this particular track does. When you look at, say, Demanufacture and Obsolete, you can tell that influence is there, perhaps perfected the most on this song on the album, but definitely heard more in the upcoming albums.
Yeah.
And also the what was the I'm trying to think of the name. There was a remix album of Soul of the New Machine, wasn't there?
Yeah, it's Fear is the Mind Killer. Like, it was like an EP.
Oh, it is. Well, I can't even. Literally, I just looked at my CDs and I don't even know how. I've forgotten
is there
that.
a remix of this one? I think there is, isn't there?
I think so. It's not one I listen to very much, because I don't know. It's not that I dislike this album by any stretch of the imagination. I really don't want it to sound like that at all. But because it's so different to the rest of Fear Factory, you don't find yourself coming back to it as much.
I actually agree with that, and I have to be in like a certain mood where I want something a bit more like raw, like death metal or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it depends on the mood. But if you just want something that's like completely different, it's a good album to pick up and just put it on.
Yeah. I might binge it for a week, but then I might not come back to it for a couple of months. You know?
I think it's like that. Yeah, because when you're thinking like, oh, it's the Fear Factory, you're thinking of like those other, like, pretty much everything that came after, in a way, right? Like, I totally get that, but that's not at all to say it's a bad album. It's just different in their own catalog. I think it's a really good album, as we can tell from making a long ass episode about it.
Yeah.
I also mentioned that it's the vocal layering in this song is really cool. It's like self-immolation, and then like in the background there's like, I can't even think what he's doing, but there's definitely like 2 layers of vocals going on, and it's like, obviously you can't really pull that off live very well, but like just on the record it's like a cool little thing that they didn't really do in the other songs, as far as I know. So the last, like, is it like last 5? I have to say I don't like the last 5 as much as the rest of the album. I feel like they sort of, like they were chucked on. A lot of it's more grindcore, death metal sort of stuff. But I made a few comments. We can just sort of run through them. It'd be interesting if you have anything to add. But yeah. The next one,
I imagine we probably have similar thoughts. Like you say, for me, I kind of get to this, and then they're still on my playlist. They're still in there, and I wouldn't skip them if I was listening through the album, because I want to make sure I finish it, sort of thing. But I think
this is why I think reordering the album, I might actually consider doing this as well, because I feel like these 5 kind of feel separated a bit from the rest of the album. Like, they still feel like the same album, but they feel like it almost feels like there's extra little part. And I think if they were distributed amongst the other songs, that might enhance them in a way, like for variety.
Yeah.
So the next one, I just call it Whoa. WOE. Whoa.
Whoa.
Oh, this actually has a really nice riff though under that bit, where it's like drowning. Like the riff is like I can't remember exactly how it goes, but that actually is like the highlight for me on that song, is that that riff under that part is really cool. Don't know if you've got anything to add to that one. No.
I really don't have much to say about the last few songs. I don't think I've listened to him enough. I mean, I listened to him again before.
Yeah, they don't stick. Like, that's why I had to sort of listen to them a lot of times to be like, what is this song again? Because like they kind of merge the end of his album sort of merges together for me a little bit, because I think they're quite similar. There's less clean vocals and stuff as well, so there's less like hooks in a way.
Yeah, they blend together quite well, but I think they also kind of lose the things that made everything before it special.
Yeah.
Not to say that the bad songs per se, they just don't feel like they've got that same magic that everything does. And I'm a pain. I get to Big God, Rape Souls, and I just put that on repeat when I'm listening. And eventually I'll get bored and go back to Martyr and go again.
That's it. Yeah. Desecrate, I've just put, it's very death metal, that song. It almost has, I want to say it sounds a bit like, do you know a band called Deicide, like Heavy as Shit?
No, Deicide, yeah.
It almost reminds me of that listening again, because there's like, they do the vocal layering with the, I might be thinking of the wrong song now, to be fair, but there's like a really high-pitched vocal. It doesn't even sound like Burton, like, I don't know who does it, maybe it is, but it's like a really high-pitched, like, scream layered with the growl at the same time, and it reminds me of them. So yeah, really, really death metal. I mean, it's a good, like, brutal track, I guess. You just want something heavy.
Yeah.
But again, it doesn't feel super Fear Factory to me. It feels, more like their peers in a way, that song.
Yeah, and it's still important to remember the point we've made a few times, which is like, we're still in the inception of what we are here. It would have been easy for Fear Factory to have gone on to be a band that sounds exactly like those last few tracks, but 32 years later, here we are, right?
Yeah, 100%. Again, Escape Confusion, I didn't have too much to note. I said it's just another very death metal sounding song. I honestly can't think too much about that one right now, which isn't good. But yeah. And then the last track, Manipulation. I've actually heard like at least Burton and maybe Dino's like saying, "Oh, this song is not good," but it has some good riffs. Actually, this one, I'm glad they sort of bring it back a little bit on the last track. It has a lot of it has some really good those stop-start riffs. I've got a thing for them. I just like them in all bands. Like I love those start-stop riffs, and it does do that well. I'd say its downsides are it doesn't have like much structure. It doesn't really have like the clean vocal bit. But just from like a pure like guitar playing perspective, I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, don't have too much more to say about that one.
No, it to me, it kind of felt like, and maybe it is the story because we don't know the full ins and outs of it. But as we said, we like Concrete and the way this album came around with Roadrunner, who, it's pretty well documented that come Digimortal and Archetype, I think the band were well and truly pissed off and had enough of Roadrunner by that point. Maybe they just threw these last bits on because they thought, if there's more on there, you might sell more copies. It did kind of feel more of a business decision than a creative one, if that makes sense. Because I find most Fear Factory albums, not all of them, but most of them have like a thoughtful song at the end or a sombre, something that kind of leaves you on that tone of, I don't know, almost finality.
Yeah, they have.
It's
that like conclusion in a way, which is like so. Some of my favorite songs are the last songs. Like
it's satisfied, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, like Final Exit and
Final Exit.
What did we say earlier? The Expiration Date, and then there's the one
Expiration Date.
What's that one that? Is it Enhanced Reality?
Oh mate, yeah. I want that song played at my funeral. I think that's an amazing song.
It's incredible, and even like I know Timelessness is the last track of Obsolete, but in my head I can only think of Resurrection as it feels like the last song to me, and then Timelessness feels like a reprise almost, but I always see Resurrection as like the last song, and that is my favorite Fear Factory song. I'm just gonna throw it out there now. Like it's absolutely my favorite. It's one of my favorite songs of all time, actually.
Even the way that we finish out on Aggression Continuum, you kind of get to that this can't be real, and it works its way out to that sort of the high guitar notes, and it feeds back into that fear is the mind killer.
Oh yeah.
But then you get like an ambient finish, don't you? And it's like
they've done that on a few albums, haven't they? Yeah. I quite like
it's brilliant.
I don't know about you. Like sometimes if I'm doing something with the album on, something around the house, I normally just leave it running, like just as a cool like background. I don't always listen to them, I'll be honest, but sometimes it's nice to just like let it run out and just like, I don't know.
Well, that's the craziness of it. I mean, when the Industrialist first came out, I would probably a very unfair critic, if I'm being honest. And I did reach out to Dino in later years and apologised and said, to be honest, I think I would be, I was going through a lot at the time, like I said, my dad and stuff like that. But I weren't having a good time in general. I weren't enjoying education, and my job was shit. And like you kind of take things out. Like you look forward to that new album, and if it's not exactly what you want, it's not more mechanized.
Yeah,
you don't
mechanized. It is like,
it's just the album is mechanized.
Yeah, I'd say the only song that is similar to me on it is the opening track. Which does
Recharge, or is it, or the Industrialist?
Just the Industrialist, the title track.
That
one does make
Power to Kill.
But then the rest of the album, it does definitely go in a different direction. And like, actually, out of all the albums, is maybe even more so than Transgression. It just took me a while to get into it. Like, it really did.
But when it gets its hooks in you,
the new version definitely made me want to like revisit it some more and stuff. And I do really like it now.
I'd definitely say that Reindustrialized is my favourite Fear Factory album, mainly because like when I finally got the bug and it really bit me, I just play it on repeat, especially.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Like it went from probably your least favourite to your favourite.
Exactly, and it's such a crazy thing. I've had a similar thing in real life recently where I don't know. To go back to the Alien films very briefly as a side topic, but I watched Alien Romulus, and on the first watch I was like, oh wow, this is brilliant. And on the first watch of Covenant, the one prior, I was like, God, this is awful. And the more I watched Romulus, the more I was like, well, actually I don't like that, and I don't like this, and I don't like that. And going back to Covenant, it gave me a new appreciation, and I was like, actually, that's quite a good idea. Oh, that's, and it was a similar sort of thing. I thought that as much as eventually it did sink in and I really enjoyed it anyway, New Messiah onwards, I just used to completely blast that, and it were a fantastic album. But Reindustrialized, as you say, sort of the sombre ending to it, you're coming out of religion is flawed because man is flawed, into Enhanced Reality, which originally didn't quite make the album. And Burton said himself was a very different song.
It needed that at the end of that album.
Yeah.
If it was up to me, I'd have songs like that at the end of every Fear Factory album, because most of them have one, though, to be fair.
Well, that was it. Yeah. It had the ambient outro, but it was missing Enhanced Reality, which was that perfect bridge between the two. I'm glad it made it back in, but like you say, I think if there was something similar to that on Soul of a New Machine, and obviously we're not going to be something that sounded exactly like it, but even if it was just something maybe a bit ambient, a bit more therapy for pain, or maybe like an early version of that, I think it'd have been a wonderful way to round it off. The last couple of tracks,
it's funny because
they don't make much sense, do they?
I'm sure on the demos there was Therapy for Pain. It's actually quite an old song. Like, they had it written like.
Yeah, it might have been on Concrete actually.
Yeah, and they actually had another song that was kind of similar, and I'm like, oh, it's funny that neither of them sort of made the cut for like a sort of final piece. But if I could pick a song that's actually on the album, I do think Scum Grief might have been like a nice way to finish off the album.
Perfect ending. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But it's still not quite like what they did with like Therapy for Pain, Final Exit, those kind of songs. It's not quite like they're just incredible, those songs. Like, but to really enjoy them, you almost have to get through the whole album rather than just listening to it on its own. Because sometimes I'm like, I just gotta listen to Resurrection. But I got to say, it hits 10 times harder if you sat through the whole album and then you get that right at the end. And it's just like
it feels like the credits for a movie, doesn't it? It's just a beautiful ending.
I never thought of it that way. Yeah, that's a really good point. It's like the credits for a film, because it's almost like the film was so good you've got to sit there and just like let it like digest in a way. Yeah.
And that was the thing that threw me off originally about Genexus, because Enhanced Reality made it on as a bonus track, but you already had Expiration Date, so you've got that nice sombre bit more mellow Fear Factory, great song. And it's almost like that was supposed to be the credits, but randomly you had this post-credits song that felt a little bit out of place, but was still a great song.
Yeah.
In context, like I say, I genuinely, going from Recharger to Enhanced Reality and that idea of Live for Today and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I like when there's like reprisals like that, like you get the same parts coming through. It's a genius idea, yeah.
Honestly, I'd have that played at my funeral, but I think it's just missing that little bit of something.
Yeah.
To tie it off nicely.
I'm glad we pretty much agreed on everything on this album, which is interesting. Like, I wonder if we'll get to an album where we're like, nah, we're having a bit. I don't think it's going to happen because we know we pretty much love like all the songs, but there might be some like if we're like ranking them, it might be like we have it upside down, like or something like that. Could be interesting. But I think like on Soul of a New Machine, we pretty much like agree on everything. But
I think that'd be a nice place to tie it up, wouldn't it? What?
Yeah.
Top 5, yeah. Top 5 exactly.
Before we wrap things up. Should we? I know what we should do. We should go. We'll both say number 5, then we'll both say number 4. I do it like that rather than.
Oh, you're making me go right. Okay.
Yeah. So like 5th favorite on the album. What are you thinking?
Scapegoat.
Yeah. See, I had Leech Master, but I'm actually thinking of bumping up. Like now we've talked about Lifeline, like I feel like I might have to put Lifeline there just because it's such a like.
That was going to be my next one.
Yeah. I'm changing it. I'm putting Lifeline for number 5, and then what are you saying?
Okay. That'd be for me Lifeline number 4.
Okay. Oh, you got it quite high as well, then yeah. Then I'm going Big God for 4. That kind of feels wrong now. I'm looking at it. Feels like it should be higher.
Scum Grief for number 3, I'd say.
Yeah, I've got Martyr.
I was going to have that as number 2.
Oh,
yeah. with Big God Rape Souls at the time. I'm sorry, I feel like I've ruined your order now.
It's fine. I went Scum Grief second, but like I said, at the minute it's kind of maybe number 1. I'm switching between that and Scapegoat, so those are like right at the top. But yeah, that just shows that we have like pretty much the same ones in the top 5, just in a different order, which is interesting.
I suppose it'll be interesting to see where we are with Demanufacture. I'm not sure if you want to maybe go into too much detail with the remix albums. I don't know.
I was thinking we could maybe do them as like separate. I reckon for now we just go for like the main albums.
Yeah, and then maybe see next time. I mean, I'm much more familiar with Demanufacture. I've listened to that so many times.
Yeah,
I remember losing the booklet and being fuming.
Into the remix ones, I think it'd be interesting to talk about them, definitely. But yeah, any final thoughts? Oh, yeah, actually, I was going to say, if anyone's watching, like, let us know your like top 5 because it'd be interesting to know what you've got. Like, have you got any of those like last songs in there you really like them? Like, that'd be interesting. But I feel like there's a general consensus that those 5 songs minus Lifeline probably those at least Scapegoat, Scum Grief, Martyr, Big God, those are the big songs on the album, aren't they? Really, like it
is a great album, and I think, like you say, you've just got to keep in mind that it is officially the first. You know, they're still kind of getting to what they're going to become.
Yeah, I don't know how old they were, but they were like pretty damn young writing these songs as well. Like, it's amazing what they did. Yeah, and
if you can approach it with an open mind and listen to it as a product of its time, then yeah, it's a bloody strong record.
Yeah,
you could do much worse. You really could do much worse.
Yeah, no, it's still, like I said, they've still got 4 songs on there that are still being played today because those ones are just like they've stood the test of time. But it's interesting.
And how many bands
even the
say
hit
that?
songs, they do stand out from the rest. Like they have this different quality about them. Like even when they're played like live with like modern production, they still sound different to the rest, which I think is like really cool. I think you could argue that this is probably one of the most like artistic Fear Factory albums. It's less structured and more just like let's get in a room and see what we can make
See what happens.
Which comes. I mean, that's a lot of first albums, right? For a lot of bands, that's just kind of how it comes across. But that's what I probably like about this album the most, is that eerie atmosphere. That, I mean, all their albums have got certain atmospheres, but this definitely has this more like, it feels more like based in reality kind of thing. Like when I'm listening, I feel like I'm walking around like these like industrial areas, like empty warehouses, like huge pieces of like machinery. It's like dark at night. Like it gives me this like rubbish, stormy, rainy weather. It gives me this very like visual thing, this album, and it's more like that rather than like futuristic stuff. It gives me this more like earthy, just industrial feeling. I mean, that's what they were going for, and they've painted a picture with the music, I think.
I mean, it's a very American vision, isn't it? And I don't mean that in sort of like in any derogatory fashion, but like when you think about sort of industry in Britain, you just think the mills and stuff.
Yeah,
and so I don't think
more like
this
the American sort of industry. Yeah, that's right. It's not quite, it's not quite as old as that. It's somewhere in the middle, like big pieces of machinery and stuff. Like maybe when people start to use electricity a lot more and stuff, more that kind of era, like rather than like industrial revolution, like you were saying and stuff.
You could just see yourself driving on some big open road and some sort of factory, like where Sarah Connor and the Terminator are at the end of the first film. Is like there's just one after the other, and they're just pumping shit into the atmosphere, and it's so dark and bleak, but it's very American.
Yeah,
and maybe that's just what's around him. I mean, that's what's inspired him, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it's like it's definitely, of all their albums, it's up there in atmosphere. Like, I think you could argue like the new albums, they have a certain futuristic atmosphere, like for sure, like that cleaner sort of production and stuff. But it definitely feels, it's a different kind of feeling, isn't it? Like those new albums feel like very like precise. They feel more mechanical. They feel really futuristic. This album definitely feels more like we were saying, more like it feels more based in reality in a way, like more like, it's hard to explain it. I think for me, it just feels like, I'm in like a really like industrial kind of environment. I'm sure that's exactly what they were going for, and they captured
Christopher Nolan's Fear Factory.
But I mean, that Burton was always well into like his films and stuff, and I think you can almost every album you can point towards like films where it, that's where he got that kind of inspiration. Even more so on the next ones that we're going to get to. But even at the start, this isn't a concept album at all. But it still has that feeling of like, like soundtrack to something, soundtrack to some like desolate, like industrial yard or something. That's what it makes me think of.
I mean, like you say, the biggest things I think when I think Soul of a New Machine is it is a great album. It's a great breakout album. It's a good way to start, make a name for yourself. It's different. It's unique. Definitely from the rest of the catalogue. And like you say, the songs really have stood the test of time. I mean, it wasn't that long ago when the internet really became the thing that I remember Five Finger Death Punch with the bleeding and the first album, The Way of the Fist. No one wants to hear that now. They want to hear all the new stuff. They want to hear Jekyll and Hyde and, the big things that get hundreds of millions of views. But, Fear Factory's fans, they still want to hear Martyr. They still want to hear Scumgrief. They still want to hear Scapegoat. I'd love to hear Big God live. It's...
I used to be, I was looking at set lists, like when I was getting into the band, I was always surprised that, they always play Martyr. And often at the end of the set. And after actually like hearing it live, like I can see why it stays in the set, because it's just raging. Like it's just the proper like headbanger, and then like everyone going duh, 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 like just like everyone singing that guitar riff is just something unusual, isn't it? It's like
it's a hell of a compliment, and it's crazy to think that when you look at bands from like the big four, like let's just say, Metallica as an example. People want to hear Enter Sandman, they want to hear Master of the Puppets, they want to hear songs that have been overplayed to death, but you could still take a handful of songs from any Fear Factory album and it would still be a great and unique gig. You know, they don't have to play the same things all the time because they've got that much in there.
Yeah.
You know, you could literally create 12 to 14 different set lists, play a different gig every night, and still get an amazing reception. And you'll have songs from this album on there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm just still waiting for the final exit. Like that's what needs to be done for me. I just think like Milo would absolutely crush it. He would do that song. So there's still hope. I reckon they'll play it at some point because he's the right. He'll be able to do that justice. That song. So it needs to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I reckon we should wrap it up there. I mean, I think your final thoughts on the album pretty much sums up everything. So, yeah, amazing first album, and yeah, you can hear those little nods to where they're going in the next sound. But yeah, we'll go on to Demanufacture last time, which obviously everyone's talked about this album to death already, but we might as well have our go at it as well.
Well, you never know. Yeah. Might rock the boat a bit, but yeah, I look forward to it.
Yeah, and yeah, see you in the next episode.